Imagine for a moment the feeling of the earth cooling as the sun dips below a vast unbroken horizon. The sky softens from a blinding gold into a deep bruised purple, and finally into a canvas of infinite velvet black. A gentle breeze sweeps across tall dry grasses, carrying with it the scent of crushed leaves and distant rain. Millions of years ago, long before the modern world began to hum with its endless noise, a distant ancestor of yours stood under this very same sky. They felt the same cooling air on their skin. They watched the same pale moon rise heavy and silent. The rhythm of their breathing in that quiet twilight was exactly the same as the rhythm of your breathing right now. Slow, steady, deep. The story of human evolution is not merely a harsh tale of survival. It is a magnificent ancient tapestry woven from moments of profound stillness, gentle adaptation, and quiet connection. Tonight, we will trace the soft echoes of our shared past. As you settle into your space, allowing the weight of the day to completely dissolve into the cushions beneath you, know that you do not need to hold on to any of the information you hear. You're entirely free from the burden of remembering. Let your mind become like a wide, calm river. Allow these ancient truths to simply drift through your awareness, like leaves floating on the gentle current of the water. If a thought captures your imagination, let it rest there. If it slips away into the quiet dark, let it go. There is no test tomorrow. There is nothing required of you. You have permission to simply exist, to listen, and to let the ancient history of our species cradle you into a deep, restorative rest. What stays with you, stays. What fades away, fades beautifully into the night. Long before we built cities or mapped the stars, our earliest ancestors made a quiet but monumental shift in the way they moved through the world. As the dense shadowed canopies of ancient forests gradually opened up into sweeping sunlit savannas, the hominid body adapted in a truly beautiful way. We stood up. The evolution of bipedalism, the act of walking perfectly upright on two legs, was not an abrupt event, but a slow, graceful reaching toward the sky. By lifting our gaze, we completely changed our relationship with the earth. Standing upright allowed us to see over the tall grasses, to observe the gentle curvature of the horizon, and to anticipate what lay ahead. It was the birth of the vista. It gave us a wider, more expansive view of our world, fostering a new kind of calm foresight. And most beautifully, by balancing perfectly on our feet, our hands were finally free. Free to carry food to a loved one, free to hold a child against our chest, and free to reach out and touch the surrounding world with a newfound gentleness. With our hands newly freed and our eyes fixed on the horizon, we eventually learned to harness the warmth of the sun even after it had set. The taming of fire was perhaps the most comforting turning point in our deeply ancient history. Before fire, the setting sun meant total darkness and the necessity of immediate sleep. But the gentle, crackling glow of the first campfires created a completely new space in the human experience, the evening. The fire offered a warm, luminous sanctuary that kept the cold and the shadows at bay. Around these glowing embers, our ancestors no longer had to focus solely on the day's physical labours. They could sit down, relax their muscles, and feel the radiant heat on their faces. The campfire became the very first centre of community, a safe, illuminated circle where the night was transformed from a time of fear into a time of deep, shared peace, accompanied only by the soft, hypnotic dance of orange flames. As they sat around those ancient, flickering fires, our ancestors began to look at one another in a new light, and their faces evolved to foster a quiet, profound empathy. If you look closely at a human eye, you will notice something deeply unique, the bright white sclera that surrounds the colourful iris. We are the only primates whose eyes look exactly like this. In the animal kingdom, most eyes are dark, designed to hide the direction of their gaze from predators. But human eyes evolved to be entirely visible, to be read and understood by others. This bright white canvas allows us to track exactly where someone else is looking without them ever needing to make a sound. It is an evolutionary adaptation purely for silent communication and cooperation. Across the quiet warmth of a nighttime fire, early humans could follow a companion's gaze, share a quiet realization, or communicate comfort, all through the gentle, soundless language of the eyes. While the eyes learned to speak in silence, the throat was slowly shaping an entirely new dimension of connection. Hidden deep within your neck is a tiny, delicate structure called the hyoid bone. It is shaped like a small horseshoe, and it is the only bone in the human body that does not connect to any other bone. It completely floats, suspended only by a network of soft muscles and ligaments. The subtle, downward shift of this floating bone during our evolution dramatically changed the shape of our vocal tract. It transformed the airway from a simple tube for breathing into a magnificent resonant instrument. Because of this tiny floating bone, human beings gain the ability to produce an incredibly wide range of soft, complex sounds. It is the anatomical gift that allows us to whisper in the dark, to hum a soothing melody, and to sing the very first gentle lullabies to sleepy children under the vast canopy of a starry sky. When the dawn gently broke and the fire dissolved into soft white ash, those ancestors stood up to move across the land, supported by an engineering marvel perfectly designed for rhythmic travel. The human foot is a masterpiece of shock absorption and endurance, completely unique in its architecture. Unlike the flat, grasping feet of our forest-dwelling cousins, our feet developed a resilient, spring-like arch. This beautiful curve in the sole of the foot is composed of highly elastic ligaments that act like natural silent springs. With every step taken on the soft earth, the arch compresses, gently absorbing the weight of the body, and then smoothly recoils, returning that energy to propel us forward. It transformed walking from a heavy, laborious effort into a smooth, gliding rhythm. This spring-like mechanism allowed early humans to travel vast distances across ancient plains, not with frantic speed, but with a slow, enduring, and meditative grace, forever connected to the soft pulse of the ground beneath them. As they travelled, the world presented itself as a landscape of textures waiting to be explored by hands that were growing increasingly refined. The evolution of the human hand, particularly the highly specialized opposable thumb, is often celebrated for its ability to grip heavy tools or craft weapons. But the true miracle of our hands lies in their capacity for extraordinary delicacy. The human hand is packed with a dense network of sensory nerves, making it incredibly responsive to the softest textures. The unique musculature of our thumbs allows for precision grips so fine that we can hold an object as fragile as a bird's egg without breaking it. This delicate touch meant that our hands were not just made for survival, they were sculpted by evolution to express care. They evolved to gently stroke the hair of a resting companion, to pick the tiniest, softest berries, to shape cool, wet clay by a riverbank, and eventually to trace the first beautiful, intentional lines of art onto a stone wall. The hands that shaped that clay also cradled the young, guarding a period of life that humans extended longer than almost any other creature on Earth. One of the most beautiful and defining traits of human evolution is the phenomenon of neoteny, which is the delaying or slowing of our physical development. Compared to other animals, humans remain children for an extraordinarily long time. We retain our soft, juvenile features, our deep curiosity, and our vulnerability for years. This extended childhood was a luxurious evolutionary risk that required the deep protection of a close-knit community. By slowing down the clock of development, the human brain was given the precious gift of time to slowly wire itself, time to observe the world without the immediate pressure of survival, time to play in the dust, to imagine, to learn the complex social dances of the group, and to dream while safely wrapped in the warm, protective embrace of the tribe. To watch over this long, vulnerable period of childhood, human society evolved yet another remarkable adaptation: the deep, enduring presence of elders. In almost all other species, life ends shortly after the reproductive years fade. But humans possess a unique evolutionary trait often referred to as the grandmother hypothesis. We evolved to live long, healthy lives far past our years of having children. This extended twilight of life is not an accident. It was an essential adaptation. The older members of the tribe became the keepers of deep time and slow wisdom. They remembered where the sweet water flowed during the dry years. They knew the rhythms of the seasons, the shapes of the healing leaves, and the quietest ways to soothe a crying infant. By having elders present to help care for the young and share their quiet, accumulated knowledge, the entire community grew stronger, calmer, and more deeply connected across generations. Yet, even as we grew into a species defined by our wisdom and our tools, our bodies held onto the quiet, microscopic memories of the creatures we used to be. Sometimes, when a cool evening breeze sweeps across your arms, or when a piece of beautiful music moves you deeply, you might notice tiny bumps appearing on your skin. These goosebumps are the work of minuscule vestigial muscles called erector pili, attached to the base of every tiny hair on your body. Millions of years ago, when our ancestors were covered in a thick layer of fur, these tiny muscles would contract to puff the fur up, creating a warm, insulating layer against the winter cold. Today, we no longer have the fur, but the tiny muscles remain, quietly doing their ancient work beneath the surface. They are harmless, silent echoes of our deep past, a gentle, physical reminder written entirely into your skin that you are a living part of an ancient, continuing story. When the chill of the evening finally gave way to the heat of the midday sun, those ancient bodies possessed one final invisible masterpiece of design to keep them perfectly at peace in the warming world. We are the most delightfully cooled creatures on the planet. Human skin is densely woven with millions of tiny eccrine sweat glands, far more than any other mammal. This incredible invisible network allows us to cool down beautifully and efficiently through the simple magic of evaporation. While other animals must retreat to the heavy shade and pant frantically to escape the heat, the human body quietly releases a microscopic cooling mist over the surface of the skin. As the warm air catches this moisture, it instantly draws the heat away, leaving the body naturally balanced and refreshed. It allowed our ancestors to walk calmly through the brightest, warmest parts of the day, wrapped in an invisible, breathable aura, perfectly in tune with the shifting temperatures of the beautiful ancient earth. That invisible, breathable aura of cooling moisture was just one way our ancestors harmonized with the vast sunlit sky overhead. As these early humans began to migrate, slowly walking out of the dappled shade of ancient forests and spreading across the endlessly varied landscapes of the earth, their very skin became a living canvas. It began to paint itself in a slow, elegant response to the light of the sun. The magnificent variety of human skin tones we see today is driven by a beautiful natural pigment called melanin. It acts as a microscopic biological parasol for our cells. In places near the equator, where the sun beat down with fierce golden intensity, human skin deepened in tone, growing rich with eumelanin. This dark pigment served to absorb and scatter ultraviolet rays, acting as a profound shield protecting the delicate DNA and essential folates flowing through the blood just beneath the surface. As humans slowly wandered into cooler, mist-shrouded northern valleys and pale winter landscapes, where the sunlight was scarce and weak, their skin adapted once more. It softened in colour, becoming translucent enough to allow every precious drop of available light to enter and synthesize vital vitamin D. The entire breathtaking spectrum of human complexion is nothing more than a map of ancient sunlight. It is a testament to how beautifully and fluidly we adapt, an elegant, silent dialogue between our ancestors' bodies and the stars they walked beneath for millennia. This profound biological connection to the elements extended far beyond the dry, open savannas, reaching deep down into the cool, silent blues of the ancient world's waters. When you cup cool water in your hands today and splash it softly against your face, an incredibly ancient switch flips deep within your nervous system. It is a phenomenon known as the mammalian dive reflex. The very moment cold water touches the highly sensitive trigeminal nerve receptors clustered around your nose and cheeks, your body completely transforms its rhythm. Your heart rate instantly and automatically slows down, a quiet drumming that drops to a deep, conserving pace. Your blood vessels gently constrict in your extremities, smoothly redirecting the flow of rich oxygen to your brain and your most vital organs. This is not a learned behaviour. It is an evolutionary echo from a time when our ancestors foraged along pristine, rocky coastlines, diving into kelp forests and exploring shallow reefs. Your body still profoundly remembers the ocean. It knows exactly how to conserve energy beneath the waves, bringing a sudden, quiet stillness to your heart the moment you return to the embrace of the water. As your own heartbeat finds its slow, steady resting pace tonight, and the muscles in your shoulders completely let go of the day's weight, allow your attention to gently soften. Notice the quiet sounds around you. You might hear the distant, rhythmic rustle of the wind outside, the slow draw of your own breath, or simply the quiet, electric hum of the room. The very shape of your ear was perfectly and meticulously sculpted by evolution to catch these subtle, life-affirming frequencies. The intricate, sweeping curves of the outer ear, known as the pinna, are not random aesthetic shapes. They act as highly precise acoustic antennas. The valleys and ridges of cartilage naturally amplify the specific pitch of the human voice, while simultaneously dampening the chaotic, low-frequency rumble of the background world. Those delicate seashell-like spirals evolved to help us instantly locate the origin of a sound, to hear a whispered warning in the tall grass, or to catch the gentle, comforting hum of a lullaby sung across the darkness of a cave. Your ears are ancient, beautifully designed instruments, permanently tuned by millions of years of history to seek out the frequencies of connection, understanding, and safety. When the sun dipped below the horizon, and those beautifully tuned ears no longer needed to actively listen for predators, the human brain entered a completely new, profound landscape of survival. The way human beings sleep is an absolute anomaly in the natural world. While many creatures must sleep incredibly lightly, keeping literal halves of their brains awake and alert to watch for danger, humans evolved the rare capacity to surrender completely to the dark. By building secure communities, mastering the use of fire, and sleeping huddled closely together, our ancestors earned the ultimate evolutionary luxury, the ability to let go. Because of this shared safety, humans experience exceptionally long, heavy periods of REM sleep, the deep restorative stage where our most vivid dreams occur. During these deep, dream-heavy hours, the brain is not simply powering down. It is working in a state of quiet grace. It is meticulously organizing the day's memories, dissolving emotional stress, and untangling complex social problems through the abstract theatre of dreams. Every single time you drift off to sleep, you're engaging in an ancient, vital act of healing, trusting the quiet of the night just as deeply as those who came thousands of generations before you. Within those deep, vivid dreams, or during the quiet, reflective moments of the waking day, the human mind sometimes gathers an overflow of feeling that requires a physical release. We are the only species on this earth known to weep tears of sheer emotion. While other animals produce tears simply to lubricate their eyes, or to wash away a speck of irritating dust, human emotional tears are chemically distinct and incredibly complex. When we cry from profound joy, a sense of overwhelming beauty, or deep, necessary sorrow, our tears carry high levels of stress hormones, alongside a natural painkiller known as leucine and enkephalin. Evolution designed crying not as a sign of weakness or failure, but as a brilliant physiological release valve for an overwhelmed nervous system. The simple act of shedding a tear literally purges the body of excess chemical energy, It washes the stress out of the bloodstream, slowly returning the mind and the heart to a state of profound, washed-clean equilibrium. It is an elegant, silent mechanism for restoring peace, leaving a quiet, settling calm in its physical wake. This deep, internal balance is not something we maintain entirely on our own. As you lie here, breathing softly into the stillness of the room, there is a vast, unseen universe thriving within you, living in perfect, quiet harmony with your body. Throughout the long arc of human evolution, we did not simply evolve alongside the plants, the earth, and the rivers. We actually invited microscopic pieces of that wild world inside of us. Your digestive system is home to tens of trillions of ancient bacteria, fungi, and microbes, forming a rich, complex inner ecosystem known as the microbiome. These microorganisms co-evolved with us over millions of years in a beautiful, silent partnership. We provide them with a warm, dark, safe sanctuary, and in return they perform miracles we cannot achieve alone. They quietly break down complex foods, synthesize essential vitamins, regulate our immune system, and, perhaps most astonishingly, produce the vast majority of our body's serotonin. This is the very chemical that stabilizes our mood, calms our anxieties, and brings us a gentle sense of well-being. You're never truly alone in the dark. You're a walking, breathing world, a peaceful steward of an ancient, microscopic forest that works tirelessly, day and night, to keep you whole and happy. With that quiet, invisible forest working perfectly within, the mind is absolutely free to simply drift. There is no need to tether your thoughts tonight. Let them wander, like slow-moving clouds drifting across a vast open sky. When you allow your mind to lose its focus and simply float, you're activating a magnificent evolutionary network known as the default mode network. This is a sprawling series of interconnected brain regions that come vividly, brightly alive only when we stop paying attention to the demanding tasks of the outside world. For our ancestors, daydreaming was never a waste of time. It was a profound survival advantage. As they stared into the dancing embers of a fire or watched the slow, hypnotic drift of a river current, their wandering minds were silently simulating future scenarios, imagining entirely new tools and connecting seemingly unrelated ideas. True human creativity, the very birth of storytelling, art, and innovation, was born in these quiet, unstructured moments of idle thought. Your natural capacity to zone out, to lose yourself in a gentle, directionless reverie, is the exact, beautiful mechanism that allowed our species to dream up the entirety of the modern world. Sometimes, the gentle drift of our internal thoughts suddenly surfaces, rippling across the very skin we wear. Imagine the soft, rosy hue of a late sunset reflecting off the surface of a pale stone. That same sudden rush of colour happens in the human cheek, making us the only creatures on the planet capable of blushing. The great naturalist Charles Darwin once called blushing the most peculiar and the most uniquely human of all expressions. It is a completely involuntary response, a sudden, warming dilation of the tiny capillary blood vessels in the face, driven entirely by the sympathetic nervous system. But why did we evolve to broadcast our inner vulnerability, our shyness, or our gentle embarrassment so clearly to the world? Anthropologists believe blushing evolved as a vital, silent social glue. By physically displaying our empathy, our regret, or our modesty, we instantly communicated honesty and approachability to the rest of our tribe. It is a beautiful biological white flag, a completely soundless way of saying, "I care about how you see me." It is a mechanism of profound connection, woven directly into the circulation of our blood, designed to keep the community gentle and close. This delicate, deeply ingrained social cohesion allowed early humans to finally relax their guard. It allowed them to feel profoundly safe in numbers, and eventually, it allowed them the freedom to play. Consider the seemingly simple, joyful act of skipping a smooth, flat stone across the perfectly calm, glass-like surface of a lake. To perform this fluid motion, you rely on a shoulder joint that is an absolute marvel of evolutionary engineering. The human shoulder evolved to be incredibly loose, wide, and flexible, acting much like a natural biological slingshot. As we draw an arm back, the highly specialized ligaments and tendons stretch across the collarbone and the shoulder blade, storing an immense amount of elastic energy. When released, that stored energy snaps forward with astonishing speed, grace, and precision. While this unique anatomical trait originally evolved to help our ancestors hunt and defend themselves by throwing heavy objects with incredible force, it eventually gave rise to something far more beautiful and light-hearted. It gave us the physical ability to toss an apple to a resting friend, to skip pebbles into the water just to watch the ripples expand, and to invent the countless games, dances, and sports that have brought laughter and joy to human communities for thousands upon thousands of years. As the physical games of the afternoon faded, and the heavy golden light of the evening began to cool into deep twilight, a completely new, invisible layer of the world would slowly awaken. The air would change. The smell of damp, crushed pine needles, the rich scent of dry earth soaking up the first heavy drops of rain, or the smoky aroma of a distant fire. Our sense of smell is wired into the human brain in a completely unique, ancient, and deeply intimate way. Unlike our other senses, like sight or touch, which are heavily filtered, sorted, and processed by the brain's outer layers before we even become aware of them, the olfactory bulb has a direct, unfiltered superhighway straight to the hippocampus and the amygdala. These are the brain's deepest, most ancient centers for memory and emotional resonance. This brilliant architectural shortcut is the reason why a single, fleeting scent caught on the evening breeze can instantly and vividly transport you backward in time, unlocking a completely forgotten childhood memory with startling emotional clarity. For early humans, this direct neural pathway was an immediate, life-saving warning system. Today, however, it remains within us as a deeply emotional time machine, a quiet, invisible thread that binds us beautifully and instantly to the people, the places, and the quiet moments we have loved the most. As the ambient scent of the cool night air settles gently around you, and the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest continues its peaceful work, allow yourself to sink just a fraction deeper into the softness beneath you. The ancient journey of our past is not yet finished. It continues to unfold, moving ever inward, moving deeper still, tracing the long, invisible lines of our shared history as the night quietly wraps its arms around the resting world. As the deep night fully claims the landscape, the world outside naturally softens, and your own physical boundaries might begin to feel delightfully blurred. In this quiet darkness, when vision rests, the body turns inward, relying on the gentle, invisible language of touch. Millions of years ago, as our earliest ancestors navigated the twilight shadows of dense, ancient forests, they experienced a profound shift in how they felt the world around them. Most mammals possess long, highly sensitive facial whiskers known as vibrissae, designed to brush against the dark brush and map the immediate surroundings. But as humans evolved, these sweeping facial antennae quietly faded away. Instead, that incredible sensory power migrated down the arms and gathered entirely at the very tips of our fingers. The skin there grew exceptionally soft, shedding the hard, sharp claws of our distant cousins in favour of smooth, delicate pads. And to protect these newly sensitive surfaces, the skin folded into intricate swirling ridges, the beautiful, completely unique topography of your fingerprints. These tiny, sweeping patterns are not merely a signature of identity, they act as microscopic amplifiers. When you brush your hand across the cool, smooth surface of a stone or the soft weave of a blanket, those tiny ridges vibrate, sending a rich, immediate symphony of texture directly to your brain. By losing our whiskers, we gain the ability to hold the world intimately in the palms of our hands, transforming the act of touching from a tool of navigation into an expression of profound knowing connection. This deep physical need for connection is written into our biology from the very first moments of life. If you have ever rested your hand near a newborn child and felt their incredibly tiny fingers instantly wrap around yours, you have experienced one of the oldest, most touching echoes of human evolution. This automatic response is known as the palmar grasp reflex. In the quiet, modern safety of a nursery, it feels like an immediate intentional embrace, but its origins reach far back into a time when human mothers carried their infants across vast, unpredictable terrains. Long before the invention of woven slings or soft protective cradles, an infant's survival depended entirely on its ability to cling tightly to the thick hair of its mother's body while she moved. The remarkable strength of a newborn's grip is an ancient, deeply ingrained instinct of holding on. It is a biological memory from a world where to hold tightly meant to be safe. Even as the fur eventually faded from our bodies, that immediate, powerful instinct to clasp a larger guiding hand remained. It transformed over thousands of generations from a mechanism of pure survival into the very first, wordless greeting a new life gives to the gentle giants who will protect it. As that ancient memory of holding on gently fades, you can allow your own hands to completely release any tension they might be carrying tonight. The fingers can uncurl, resting heavily and softly beside you. There is nothing you need to grasp or hold tightly in this moment. The body grows heavier, sinking deeper into a state of profound, undisturbed safety, perfectly supported by the quiet earth beneath you. With the hands resting peacefully, the mind is free to wander back into the daylight of our distant past, painting the ancient landscape in colours that are uniquely human. When you imagine a vibrant, fiery sunset, or the deep, lush emerald of a rain-soaked fern, you're experiencing the world through a rare and specialised evolutionary lens. The vast majority of mammals live in a muted world, seeing primarily in washes of blue, yellow, and shifting shades of grey. But deep in the canopy of our primate history, a beautiful genetic mutation occurred. Our ancestors developed a third type of colour receptor in the delicate retina of the eye, unlocking the extraordinary gift of trichromatic vision. This bright new world of perception did not evolve so we could appreciate the beauty of a painted sky. It evolved as a vital mechanism to spot the rich, red blush of ripe fruit hidden among a sea of green leaves. It allowed early hominids to instantly distinguish what was sweet, nourishing, and ready to be gathered. Yet, this purely practical adaptation accidentally gifted our species with an overwhelming capacity for visual wonder. Because of a simple need to find sweet berries in the dappled light of an ancient forest, you possess the breathtaking ability to perceive millions of distinct shades of colour, turning the entire natural world into an endless, shifting masterpiece. As those vibrant, sweet fruits and eventually gathered foods were brought back to the warmth of the early campfires, the human body underwent a slow, invisible, and miraculous transformation from the inside out. The act of placing food into the glowing, crackling heat of a fire changed the very course of our physical development. Cooking acts as a kind of external stomach. The flames break down the tough, fibrous cell walls of roots and plants long before they ever reach our mouths. Because our ancestors began to cook, the human digestive tract no longer needed to be massively long or expend enormous amounts of energy slowly fermenting tough raw vegetation. Over thousands of years, our intestines gently shortened and our stomachs became smaller and remarkably efficient. This quiet shrinking of our internal organs was one of the most pivotal trade-offs in human history. By reducing the massive metabolic cost of digestion, a vast surplus of biological energy was suddenly freed up. That precious energy was immediately redirected upward, fueling the breathtaking expansion of the human brain. The simple, comforting act of a shared, warm meal around a fire literally provided the physiological fuel required to build the complex, dreaming, thinking mind that you're using to simply exist in this peaceful moment. This transition to softer, warmly cooked foods also slowly resculpted the very shape of the human face, softening our features into the profiles we recognize today. Look at the powerful, robust jawlines of our closest primate relatives, completely dominated by thick, heavy chewing muscles that anchor securely to the top of the skull. For millions of years, an incredibly strong bite was absolutely essential for grinding down tough, uncooked bark and fibrous leaves. But as fire softened our meals, the heavy, demanding labour of the jaw was no longer necessary. In a beautiful example of evolutionary economy, a specific genetic shift caused those massive chewing muscles to dramatically reduce in size. As the muscles shrank and the heavy jawbone slowly receded, the thick, bony crests on the skull that once held them in place simply melted away. This softening of the lower face removed the tight physical constraints that had kept the skull bound. With the heavy scaffolding gone, the upper cranium was finally free to expand upward and outward, making physical room for a larger, more intricate cortex. Our faces grew softer, less imposing, and more delicate, directly paving the way for the profound intelligence and expressive emotion that defines our species. As you reflect on the gentle softening of the ancient human face, allow your own jaw to gracefully relax. Let the tiny, tired muscles around your temples, your cheeks, and your mouth completely let go. The breath settles into an easy, natural rhythm. The mind can simply drift on these long, slow currents of time, untethered and entirely at peace. With each easy, natural breath you take, the gentle rise and fall of your chest traces another brilliant structural adaptation that completely separates us from the rest of the natural world. If you were to look at the skeletal structure of an early ape, you would see a ribcage shaped somewhat like a wide funnel, expanding heavily at the bottom to accommodate that massive, ancient digestive system. But as humans stood upright and our diets changed, our entire torso elongated and streamlined. The human ribcage evolved into a sleek, symmetrical barrel shape. This elegant architectural shift completely redefined how the lungs operate within the chest cavity. Rather than just taking shallow, panting breaths, the barrel-shaped ribs allowed the lungs to expand independently and deeply, pulling in vast, controlled volumes of air. Originally, this incredible breath control evolved to stabilize the torso while running across the hot ancient plains, allowing our ancestors to cool down and maintain stamina over immense distances. But this very same rhythmic control of airflow, the ability to release breath slowly and precisely over the vocal cords, became the absolute foundation for spoken language. The architecture of your chest, designed long ago for silent, enduring travel, is the very reason you can hold a long note in a song, or speak a soft, continuous sentence of comfort to someone in the dark. That enduring travel across the ancient plains relied not just on the air in our lungs, but on a brilliant, quiet stabilization at the very base of the body. When you stand up, the vast majority of your weight rests on a single, dense block of bone at the back of your foot called the calcaneus, or the heel bone. In monkeys and climbing apes, this bone is relatively small, designed for agile movement in the soft green canopy. But as humans committed entirely to a life on the ground, walking upright across vast, unpredictable landscapes, the heel bone had to dramatically adapt. It grew thick, robust and highly dense, encased safely inside a layer of shock-absorbing tissue. This enlarged, sturdy foundation acts as the body's ultimate anchor. It is the primary point of impact with the earth, designed to absorb the heavy, rhythmic shock of every single footstep over an entire lifetime without fracturing. It is a beautiful, physical grounding mechanism. Every time your heel touches the ground, you're utilizing a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering designed specifically to connect you solidly to the earth, ensuring that no matter how far you travel, you're always balanced, always supported, and always fundamentally rooted in the physical world. Even with this solid grounding and the quiet efficiency of our bodies, the human brain, the most complex organ ever to evolve, generates a significant amount of heat as it processes the endless details of waking life. When the day grows long and your eyelids begin to feel incredibly heavy with the natural desire for sleep, you might find yourself taking a deep, involuntary yawn. For centuries, people believed yawning was simply a sign of boredom or a way to pull more oxygen into tired lungs. But evolutionary biologists have uncovered a much more elegant, fascinating truth. Yawning is actually a highly sophisticated brain-cooling mechanism. When you stretch your jaw wide and pull in a massive sweeping rush of cool ambient air, it immediately chills the blood circulating through the roof of your mouth and the nasal cavity. This freshly cooled blood is then delivered directly to the brain, acting like a natural biological breeze. It gently lowers the temperature of the cerebral cortex, providing a brief, refreshing reset for an exhausted mind. Furthermore, the highly contagious nature of a yawn is a deeply ingrained social instinct, evolving as a silent, empathetic signal that rippled across ancient camps, helping the entire tribe synchronize their biological clocks and transition peacefully into sleep together. There is no need to fight the gentle, cooling wave of tiredness if it washes over you now. If a sigh or a quiet yawn naturally arises, let it happen. It is just the body preparing its quiet sanctuary, lowering the internal lights and making everything cool, soft, and completely ready for deep, healing rest. As we moved closer to the modern era, our ancestors' relationship with the natural world shifted from quietly wandering through it to gently tending to it, creating one of the most recent and profound evolutionary changes in our biology. For millions of years, the ability to digest milk was a strictly temporary gift, powered by a vital, nourishing enzyme called lactase that completely disappeared from the human body shortly after the years of early childhood. But around 10,000 years ago, as nomadic tribes settled into the rhythmic, seasonal life of pastoral farming, they began to live side by side with gentle herds of sheep, goats, and cattle. In these deeply intertwined communities, a spontaneous, brilliant genetic shift occurred. In a beautiful example of human biology co-evolving with the animal kingdom, the switch that normally turned off milk digestion simply stayed on. This phenomenon, known as lactase persistence, meant that humans could rely on a continuous, peaceful source of deep, sustaining nutrition without ever having to harm the animals they raised. It completely transformed the landscape of human survival, turning the harsh, freezing winters of the Northern Hemisphere into periods of quiet endurance, sustained entirely by the rich, warm, continuous bond between human beings and the animals grazing softly in the fields beside them. As we slowly adapted to this new, settled way of life, walking on flattened paths and cultivated fields rather than wild, untamed forests, the body continued its silent, ongoing process of shedding what it no longer required. Deep within the back of your lower leg, hidden safely behind the powerful swell of the calf, there is a tiny, thin muscle known as the plantaris. In our ancient primate cousins, this muscle is highly developed and crucial. It connects directly to the toes, allowing them to tightly curl and grasp rough branches, essentially using the foot like a second, powerful hand. But as humans committed entirely to the smooth, rolling forward gait of bipedal walking, the need to grasp with our feet completely dissolved. Over countless generations, the plantaris muscle has slowly shrunk, becoming so thin and delicate that it provides almost no physical function today. In fact, in roughly 10% of human beings currently living, this muscle has disappeared completely, gently absorbed back into the blueprint of the body. It is a profoundly beautiful realization that evolution is not just about growing or expanding. It is also about the quiet, peaceful letting go of the things that no longer serve us. Our bodies are silently clearing away the remnants of the ancient tangled branches, lightening our physical load and smoothing the path forward. As the distant echoes of that ancient canopy fade away, leaving us grounded, cooled, and beautifully adapted to the open, quiet spaces of the world, the story of our biology continues to whisper its secrets into the stillness of the night, leading us toward the most remarkable invisible landscapes hidden just beneath the surface of the skin. If you were to rest your forearm gently across your lap right now, turning the soft center of your palm upward toward the open air, you might uncover another quiet disappearance written directly into your anatomy. By pressing your thumb and your pinky finger together and slightly tilting your wrist, a raised, taut band of tissue often appears just beneath the surface of the skin. This is the palmaris longus tendon. Millions of years ago, when our primate ancestors spent their days navigating the dizzying sunlit heights of the forest canopy, this long, highly active muscle was absolutely essential for swinging smoothly from branch to branch. It provided the extraordinary grip strength needed to hang suspended above the earth. But as we descended from the trees, trusting our weight entirely to the stable ground, the intense need for that sweeping arboreal strength slowly evaporated. Over countless generations, the palmaris longus began to fade. Today, nearly 15% of all human beings are born completely without it, and their hands function just as beautifully and perfectly in its absence. It is a stunning, living example of our biology slowly packing away the tools we no longer need, smoothing our bodies into new, streamlined forms perfectly suited for a life walking quietly across the open ground. As you glide your attention across the smooth skin of that resting arm, you might think of humans as the great, hairless wanderers of the animal kingdom. When we look at the dense, dark fur of a chimpanzee or a mountain gorilla, our own pale, exposed skin seems like a massive, sudden departure from our ancient lineage. But the truth is far more subtle and deeply fascinating. We did not actually lose our hair. If you were to count the microscopic hair follicles scattered across the surface of the human body, you would find that we have virtually the exact same density of follicles as a chimpanzee. Our fur simply transformed. Instead of growing thick and coarse to trap heat, the vast majority of our hair miniaturized into what is known as vellus hair, a layer of incredibly fine, almost entirely invisible peach fuzz. This microscopic covering acts as a highly advanced, ultra-sensitive biological net. It allows us to feel the absolute lightest touch, the gentle settling of a tiny insect, or the subtle shift of a cool evening breeze against the skin. We traded the heavy, insulating blanket of thick fur for a masterpiece of sensory awareness, allowing us to feel the delicate, whispering textures of the world with unparalleled precision. That gentle breeze might eventually sweep upward, grazing the soft curve of the lower jaw, brushing against a physical feature so common that we almost never realize how profoundly strange it is. Look at any other animal on the planet. Look at the majestic profile of a lion, the broad snout of a bear, or even the reconstructed faces of our closest ancient cousins, the Neanderthals. Not a single one of them possesses a chin. Human beings are the absolute only creatures on Earth with this small, bony protrusion resting at the very base of the face. As our ancestors learned to cook their food, making it dramatically softer, our heavy jawbones and massive teeth began to shrink and recede backward into the skull. However, the lower ridge of the jawbone resisted this backward march, staying anchored in place to protect the delicate mechanics of our airway and to reinforce the jaw against the subtle, complex physical stresses of spoken language. The human chin is, quite literally, a solitary architectural pillar left standing after the heavy scaffolding of our deep past was carefully dismantled, leaving behind the delicate, expressive faces we use to quietly greet each other today. As the muscles of your own expressive face completely soften, allowing the jaw to rest heavily and easily, the rest of your body can follow suit, sinking into a state of profound, undisturbed stillness. You do not need to hold on to any physical tension. Let the shoulders drop. Let the arms grow heavy. The human body was not actually built for constant, explosive tension. In the deep history of our evolution, we made a remarkable trade-off beneath the surface of the skin. While our primate cousins retained massive amounts of fast-twitch muscle fibers, designed for incredible bursts of brute strength and sudden powerful leaps, humans slowly cultivated a vast network of slow-twitch muscle fibers. These deep, beautifully oxygenated muscle tissues are not built for sheer power. They are entirely built for patience. They are incredibly resistant to fatigue, allowing early humans to jog lightly for hours under the heat of the sun, tracking animals across immense golden plains without ever tiring. We traded the explosive strength of the jungle for the quiet, enduring stamina of the open road. Your muscles are historically designed to endure, to pace themselves gently, and to carry you smoothly through long, slow journeys across the span of an entire lifetime. Sometimes, after a long journey, or at the very end of a demanding day, the body will instinctively draw in a massive deep breath and release it in a long, vocalized rush of air. A sigh. We often think of sighing as purely emotional, a sign of exhaustion, frustration, or absolute relief. But a sigh is actually a brilliant, deeply mechanical reflex, hardwired into the oldest parts of the brainstem. Deep inside the soft tissue of your lungs are hundreds of millions of tiny, balloon-like air sacs called alveoli, where the vital exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. As we breathe quietly and shallowly throughout the day, some of these tiny microscopic balloons naturally begin to collapse, sticking together like wet tissue paper. If too many collapse, our breathing becomes laboured and inefficient. To prevent this, the brain automatically triggers a sigh every few minutes, a sudden double-volume breath that pushes a rush of air deep into the chest, physically popping those tiny collapsed alveoli back open. Every single time you sigh, your body is performing a quiet, microscopic act of internal maintenance, a biological reset button that completely restores your equilibrium and invites an immediate sweeping sense of physical calm. When that long, calming sigh finally rushes outward, it passes gently over the subtle vertical groove resting directly between the base of the nose and the top of the upper lip. This tiny, beautiful indentation is called the philtrum. In many other mammals, like dogs and cats, the centre of the face is split by a deep, wet groove that helps carry dissolved scents directly up to the nose, painting the world in a rich, three-dimensional map of odours. But as human ancestors slowly lifted their heads, prioritising the bright, colourful world of vision over the invisible world of scent, our faces underwent a profound reshaping. Deep inside the dark, quiet warmth of the womb, the human face actually develops in three distinct puzzle pieces that grow inward from the sides and slowly meet in the very centre. The philtrum is the exact delicate seam where these three puzzle pieces finally join together, permanently sealing the face into a unified whole. It is a tiny, beautiful scar of our own creation, a lasting physical memory of the exact moment we were pieced together in the quiet dark before we were ever born. Just beneath that beautifully fused upper lip, hidden away in the very darkest corners of the jaw, lie the slow, lingering ghosts of a diet we left behind millions of years ago. The third molars, commonly known as wisdom teeth, are the heavy, grinding stones of our distant ancestors. When early hominids survived entirely on raw, fibrous roots, tough leaves and dense bark, they absolutely required wide, elongated jaws packed with massive teeth to crush their meals. But as the miracle of fire gave us soft, cooked foods, and as our craniums ballooned outward to house an ever-growing brain, the lower face had to make a dramatic compromise. The human jaw simply became too small to comfortably hold those ancient, heavy molars. For thousands of generations, these teeth have been attempting to erupt into spaces that simply no longer exist. A slow, biological phase-out happening in real time. In fact, more and more people are being born completely without the buds for wisdom teeth, as our bodies elegantly edit out the heavy, unnecessary remnants of a past we no longer inhabit, lightening the skull for the thoughts of tomorrow. As the jaw relaxes completely, the breathing settling into an easy, unbroken rhythm, the mind can continue to gently unravel the mysteries of our ancient physical form without any effort at all. Occasionally, this quiet rhythm of breathing is interrupted by a sudden, involuntary spasm of the diaphragm, followed immediately by the sharp closing of the vocal cords, a hiccup. While it feels like a simple, temporary nuisance, evolutionary biologists believe the hiccup is an incredibly ancient echo, ringing across more than 370 million years of history. Long before mammals ever existed, our distant evolutionary ancestors were amphibious creatures, swimming through warm, ancient oceans and breathing through gills. The neurological sequence of a human hiccup, the sudden, powerful intake of water, followed instantly by the closing of the glottis so water doesn't enter the lungs, is the exact same mechanical pattern used by modern tadpoles to breathe. When you hiccup, you're experiencing a temporary harmless glitch in your modern wiring, a tiny, fleeting memory of a time when the creatures that eventually became us floated gracefully through the silent blue depths of an ancient sea. When our ancestors finally left those ancient waters entirely, evolving to walk upon the vast, shifting sands of the dry earth, their bodies had to solve a magnificent problem of balance and propulsion. If you were to walk along a quiet beach tonight, looking back at the soft, deep impressions your feet leave in the sand, you would see a perfectly aligned row of toes, with the largest toe pointing straight ahead. This seems entirely normal to us, but in the primate world it is an absolute rarity. In chimpanzees and gorillas, the large toe juts sharply outward to the side, functioning exactly like an opposable thumb to securely grasp thick branches. But as the forest canopy thinned and early humans committed to walking endlessly across the open ground, that grasping toe slowly swung forward, falling beautifully into line with the others. The hallux, or the big toe, became enlarged, sturdy, and locked into a forward-facing position. This single, elegant shift completely transformed the human foot into a highly efficient lever. It allowed us to push off the soft earth with immense directed power, abandoning the tangled branches of our past for a smooth, unbroken stride toward an endlessly receding horizon. The quiet rhythmic sound of those ancestral footsteps walking across the dry earth was gathered and processed by an ear that was also slowly changing its shape, settling into the delicate form it holds today. If you run a finger gently along the upper, outer rim of your ear, you might feel a tiny, thickened fold of cartilage, a little bump resting near the top. This small, fascinating feature is known as Darwin's tubercle. Millions of years ago, the ears of our distant ancestors were deeply pointed and connected to highly active muscles that allowed the entire ear to swivel like a radar dish. This allowed them to instantly pinpoint the rustle of a predator in the tall grass or the snap of a twig in the dark. But as humans began to walk upright, relying on our height and our brilliant colour-rich vision to scan the landscape, the intense need for swivelling, pointed ears diminished. The sharp point of the ear gently folded over and rolled downward, permanently resting against the outer rim. Today, Darwin's tubercle is just a soft, sleeping monument to our deeply watchful past, a tiny, folded whisper of the wild standing silently guard as you finally allow the busy modern world to fade completely into the background. As the busy modern world fades completely into the background, leaving only the softest textures of the night, you might occasionally notice a tiny, almost imperceptible flutter around your temples when a distant sound breaks the quiet. Just beneath the skin, surrounding the delicate cartilage of your ear, lies a faint network of 3 tiny muscles, the anterior, superior, and posterior auriculars. In the deep, wild history of our mammalian ancestors, these muscles were thick and powerful, acting as living motors that could instantly pivot the entire ear toward the snap of a twig or the rustle of dry leaves. They allowed the ear to track danger with the precision of a moving satellite dish. But as human beings evolved to rely on our towering height, our binocular vision, and the safe, watchful numbers of our tribes, we no longer needed to constantly swivel our ears in the dark. The powerful motors slowly dissolved into whisper-thin threads. Yet, they never fully disappeared. Even tonight, when a sudden soft noise echoes in the room, those ancient muscles still automatically receive a faint electrical pulse from your brain, trying to turn an ear that no longer moves. It is a beautiful, harmless reflex, a tiny, muscular memory of the ancient night, twitching softly in the quiet, reminding you that your body is still deeply attuned to the world around you, even as it safely powers down. As your body powers down and your eyes remain comfortably closed, the delicate architecture of your resting eyes holds another hidden piece of our deep aquatic past. If you were to look closely in a mirror at the very inner corner of your eye, just closest to the bridge of your nose, you would see a tiny crescent-shaped fold of pink tissue known as the plica semilunaris. Millions of years ago, before mammals walked the dry earth, our distant ancestors required a completely different kind of protection for their vision. They possessed a nictitating membrane, a translucent third eyelid that could sweep horizontally across the surface of the eye, clearing away dust, debris, or the salty sting of ocean water, while still allowing light to filter through. As we evolved away from those harsh, particulate-heavy environments and developed a complex sweeping reflex in our upper and lower eyelids, this translucent shield slowly shrank. It retreated into the inner corner, folding itself away forever. Today, this tiny sleeping crescent no longer sweeps across your vision. It simply rests there, providing a gentle flexibility to the eye's movement and silently gathering the soft, heavy remnants of sleep, a quiet guardian left over from a world of ancient waters. And as that heavy, comforting sleep begins to gather, you can allow the muscles across your forehead and the crown of your head to completely release. The skull feels heavy, resting securely on the pillow. The mind can simply drift. This magnificent, dense structure of bone protecting your thoughts was not always a single, solid vault. When a human being is first brought into the world, their skull is not a closed sphere, but a beautiful, shifting mosaic of distinct plates. These plates are separated by soft, fibrous gaps known as fontanelles. This incomplete, flexible architecture is one of the most brilliant compromises in human evolution. Because our species evolved to possess extraordinarily large brains, the infant skull had to remain beautifully soft and pliable, allowing it to gently compress and overlap during the journey of birth. For the first many months of life, a human infant literally wears an open crown, a flexible, yielding mind map that allows the brain beneath it to rapidly grow, dream, and expand into the new world. It is only after this period of immense vulnerable growth that the soft gaps slowly turn to solid bone, knitting together in intricate, jagged seams. We begin our lives entirely soft, entirely open to the universe, and only slowly do we form the solid boundaries that will protect us as we walk through the world. Protected within those boundaries, deep inside the dark, warm center of your body, there is a tiny, often misunderstood structure that acts as a profound guardian of your internal balance. For centuries, scientists believed the human appendix, a small, worm-like pouch extending from the lower right side of the large intestine, was nothing more than a useless evolutionary leftover, a troublesome remnant of a time when we needed a massive digestive chamber to break down tough tree bark. But recent evolutionary biology has revealed a far more beautiful and nurturing truth. The appendix is actually lined with incredibly dense lymphatic tissue, and it serves as a secure, microscopic safe house. It is an internal sanctuary. In the ancient world, when early humans frequently suffered from severe illnesses that washed away the delicate microbiome from their digestive tracts, the body needed a way to restart its internal garden. The appendix acts as a hidden vault, safely storing a pristine, untouched reserve of beneficial bacteria. Once the fever of illness passed, this tiny sanctuary would gently release its living seeds back into the gut, entirely repopulating the digestive tract and restoring the body's health. It is a biological time capsule, a quiet internal greenhouse waiting patiently in the dark, ensuring that you always have the means to heal and begin again. This resilience and ability to constantly endure is physically mirrored in the very pillar that holds you upright during your waking hours. As you lie here, perfectly supported, tracing the long, quiet line of your spine against the mattress, you might notice its subtle, undulating shape. Unlike the simple C-shaped arch found in the backs of our great ape cousins, the human spine evolved a magnificent, sweeping double curve. As we stood up to walk upon the vast savannas, the heavy weight of the head and the torso had to be perfectly balanced over the hips. To achieve this, the lower spine gracefully curved inward, creating the lumbar lordosis, while the upper spine curved gently outward. This elegant S-shaped architecture transformed the human backbone from a simple supporting rod into a massive biological spring. As you walk, run, or simply shift your weight, these deep curves gently compress and expand, flawlessly absorbing the heavy downward shock of gravity. This beautiful spring-like suspension system keeps the delicate brain completely stable, preventing the head from jarring with every footstep. It is a masterpiece of dynamic balance, a winding river of bone that allowed our ancestors to glide smoothly across the earth, turning the harsh impact of the ground into a soft, rolling rhythm. The smooth rhythm of that ancient walk was supported by joints that learned an entirely new way to rest. Imagine an early human standing atop a high ridge, gazing out over a sweeping golden valley for hours, watching the slow movement of distant clouds or grazing animals. To stand completely upright for that long without collapsing from exhaustion requires an evolutionary trick of absolute genius. The human knee is entirely unique in the animal kingdom because it possesses a brilliant locking mechanism. When you stand up and straighten your legs completely, the bottom of the femur bone subtly rotates inward just a fraction of an inch, slotting perfectly into the tibia below it. This tiny, graceful twist physically locks the joint into a solid, stable pillar. Once this lock is engaged, the massive, energy-hungry muscles of the thighs and the calves can simply switch off. The body's weight is transferred entirely onto the structural strength of the bones and ligaments. We are the only primates capable of this profound physical stillness. It is an adaptation built purely for patience, allowing us to stand effortlessly at the edge of the world, silently observing the vastness before us without spending a single drop of precious energy. As you experience your own profound stillness now, feeling the slow, rhythmic expansion of your lungs, you might feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. The breath is automatic, easy, and endlessly comforting. The very breadth of your chest, the wide open space that allows your lungs to fill so completely, is held in place by a single, elegant strut of bone known as the clavicle, or the collarbone. It is the only long bone in the entire human body that lies completely horizontally. Millions of years ago, when our primate ancestors navigated the complex three-dimensional maze of the forest canopy, the collarbone evolved to keep the arms securely tethered out to the sides, preventing the shoulders from collapsing inward under the immense weight of hanging from branches. When we eventually left the trees, we kept this horizontal strut. Today, it acts as a permanent stabilizing beam, pushing the shoulders wide and keeping the ribcage beautifully open. Because of this lingering ghost of our tree-swinging past, your chest remains expansive and uncrowded, allowing the heart to beat freely and the lungs to draw in vast oceanic tides of cool, calming air. This wide, beautifully balanced upper body required a massive stabilizing anchor to keep it from toppling forward as we moved across the earth. The evolution of human upright walking gave rise to the single largest and heaviest muscle in the human body, the gluteus maximus. While other primates have relatively small flat muscles in this region, suited for occasional upright bursts, the human form developed a remarkably powerful, dense swell of muscle tissue at the base of the spine. Its primary evolutionary purpose was not merely to walk, but to serve as a biological tether. When early humans began to run, hunting, playing, or traversing immense distances, the heavy upper torso naturally wanted to pitch forward with the momentum. With every long, bounding stride across the earth, this dense muscle powerfully but smoothly contracts, pulling back on the pelvis and the spine, keeping the entire upper body perfectly vertical. It is a monumental force of counterbalance. This deep, silent anchor works tirelessly in the background of your waking life, an evolutionary tether perfectly designed to keep you from falling, holding you proudly and safely upright against the constant invisible pull of gravity. Yet, even as our bodies are held strongly together by bone and muscle, our outer edges are in a state of constant, gentle surrender. We often think of ourselves as solid, permanent beings, but the human body is actually an endless, quiet process of physical renewal. The outermost layer of your skin, the epidermis, is continuously, completely replacing itself. Deep down at the base of this layer, new, vibrant cells are born in the dark. Slowly, over the course of about a month, they travel upward to the surface, where they silently dry out and flake away, making room for the new life rising beneath them. In a single hour, you seamlessly shed millions of these microscopic skin cells, drifting away into the air like invisible snow. Over the course of an average lifetime, a human being will shed and completely replace more than 40 pounds of skin. You are literally leaving a dusting of your past behind you wherever you go. The body you inhabit tonight is not the exact same body you inhabited a decade ago. It is a continuously regenerated masterpiece. It is a beautiful biological reminder that we are never truly stuck. We are always, quietly and entirely making ourselves anew, softly letting go of the old to welcome the fresh, unbroken surface of the future. And as you rest within this endlessly renewing body, surrounded by the quiet hum of the night, you are engaging in a practice that connects you invisibly to the minds of everyone who has ever listened to a story in the dark. Throughout the long arc of human evolution, the sharing of spoken narratives became the ultimate tool for survival and connection. When people sat around the glowing embers of an ancient campfire, listening to the soft, rhythmic voice of an elder weaving a tale, an incredible neurological phenomenon occurred, one that modern science calls neural coupling. As the speaker describes a vivid landscape or a gentle journey, the very same areas of the listener's brains illuminate in perfect synchronization. The electrical brainwaves of the listener slowly align with the brainwaves of the storyteller. By simply closing your eyes and following the gentle thread of a shared narrative, your brain is actively linking itself to an ancient communal rhythm. It is the evolutionary magic of deep empathy. You are never truly drifting alone. You are part of a vast, synchronized tapestry of dreaming minds, breathing together, resting together, and allowing the soft, ancient echoes of our shared past to carry you seamlessly into the deeper, quieter realms of the night. As that soft, ancient synchronization carries you deeper into the quiet realms of the night, your body continues its silent, rhythmic work of maintaining a masterpiece that was billions of years in the making. Even in this state of profound stillness, where the muscles have surrendered their weight and the breath has become a shallow, effortless tide, your heart continues its steady, faithful drumming. It is a rhythm that began long before you were born, and it carries within it a fascinating evolutionary secret. If you were to look at the very architecture of the human heart, you would find that we possess an unusually high percentage of a specific type of muscle tissue that is almost entirely resistant to fatigue. Unlike the muscles in your arms or legs, which can grow tired and require long periods of recovery, the heart is built to never pause. This constant, unwearied motion is supported by a dense network of mitochondria, the microscopic power plants of our cells. In a human heart, these power plants take up nearly 35% of the space within each cell, whereas in regular skeletal muscle, they take up only about 1 or 2%. This incredible energy density allows your heart to beat over 100,000 times every single day without ever needing to stop for rest. It is a tireless guardian, a biological engine that has been refined by eons of history to ensure that even while your mind drifts through the farthest reaches of sleep, the spark of life within you remains constant, warm, and perfectly rhythmic. That rhythmic spark of life is protected by a skeletal frame that is far more dynamic than it appears. As you lie here, feeling the comforting weight of your bones against the mattress, it is helpful to realize that your skeleton is not a static, dry scaffolding, but a living, breathing organ system. In fact, every single day, your bones are quietly engaging in a magnificent process of internal sculpting. Your body employs a specialized team of cells called osteoclasts and osteoblasts. One team gently dissolves tiny microscopic fragments of old bone, while the other team meticulously replaces it with fresh, strong, mineral-rich tissue. This means that your skeleton is in a state of constant, peaceful renewal. Approximately every 10 years, you are walking, breathing, and resting with an entirely new set of bones. This remarkable turnover allowed our ancestors to adapt to changing environments, strengthening their frames to meet the demands of a life on the move. Tonight, as you rest, this quiet sculpting continues in the dark. Your body is gently reinforcing itself, smoothing over the stresses of the day, and ensuring that the pillars of your physical being are as fresh and resilient as the morning light. As the pillars of your body find their most comfortable alignment, the mind begins to loosen its grip on the world of logic, settling into a state of easy, dreamy acceptance. The body grows heavier, the breath settles, and the space between your thoughts begins to widen, like a slow-winding river entering a vast, silent lake. There is no need to hold any part of yourself too tightly. You're safe to simply be. Within this state of easy acceptance, you might find a strange comfort in the realization that your body is not just a single entity, but a vast, collaborative archive of the entire history of life on Earth. If you were to look deep into the nucleus of any one of your cells, you would find that a staggering 8% of your human DNA does not actually come from your ancestors. It comes from ancient viruses. Millions of years ago, these microscopic travelers integrated themselves into the genetic code of our early mammalian predecessors. Instead of causing harm, many of these viral sequences were tamed and repurposed by evolution to serve vital functions. One of the most beautiful examples is a protein called syncytin, which is entirely derived from an ancient virus. This protein is what allows the placenta to form during pregnancy, creating the soft, protective barrier that nourishes new life. We are, in a very real sense, biological mosaics. We carry the remnants of ancient microscopic encounters within our very core, turning what was once foreign into the very foundation of how we protect and nurture our children. It is a profound reminder that we are built from the world around us, a living testament to the idea that even the smallest, most invisible forces can leave a lasting, beautiful mark on the story of who we are. This story of who we are is often written in the way we perceive the passing of time and the light of the stars. As the room grows darker and you settle into the deep stillness of the night, your brain is quietly responding to a tiny pea-sized gland tucked deep within its center, the pineal gland. For our very distant ancestors, this gland was often referred to as a third eye, because it was directly sensitive to light through the skull or thin layers of tissue. While it is now buried deep within our complex brains, it still serves as our primary biological clock. The moment the golden light of the sun fades and the cool blue shadows of twilight emerge, the pineal gland begins to secrete melatonin, a chemical signal that acts like a soft velvet curtain being drawn across the waking mind. This is not just a signal for sleep. It is an ancient evolutionary rhythm that synchronizes your internal chemistry with the rotation of the planet itself. By following this ebb and flow of light and dark, your body ensures that its most vital repair work happens in harmony with the natural world. Even in the modern world of artificial lights, your pineal gland remains a faithful sentinel, waiting for the dark so it can whisper to your cells that it is finally time to let go, to rest, and to heal under the invisible watch of the moon. As that soft velvet curtain of melatonin settles over your awareness, your mind might drift toward the very structure that allows you to imagine such things. The human brain is often described as the most complex object in the known universe, but its most beautiful feature is its extraordinary plasticity, its ability to physically reshape itself based on your experiences. Every time you learn a new skill, listen to a soothing story, or find a moment of genuine peace. The billions of neurons in your brain are reaching out to one another, forming new microscopic bridges. In the ancient world, this adaptability was the secret to our survival, allowing us to master new tools and navigate vastly different landscapes. But it also serves a deeply restorative purpose. During sleep, your brain is busy pruning away the cluttered, unnecessary connections of the day and strengthening the pathways that bring you meaning and comfort. Your mind is quite literally a garden that tends itself in the dark. As you listen to these words, your brain is softly weaving the sensations of calm and safety into its very physical structure, making it easier for you to find this same peace tomorrow. You're not just resting. You're cultivating a more resilient, peaceful version of yourself with every easy breath. This cultivation of peace is a luxury that was earned through a very specific change in how our ancestors fueled their lives. While we have discussed how cooking food allowed our brains to grow, it also changed the very chemistry of our blood in a way that feels particularly relevant to a quiet night of rest. Because humans transitioned to a diet that was much easier to digest and far more energy dense, our bodies developed the ability to store energy in a highly efficient way through specialized adipose tissue or fat. While we often think of this in modern terms, from an evolutionary perspective, our ability to store fat was a magnificent gift of security. It acted as a biological battery, a thermal blanket, and a source of internal water. This storage allowed early humans to survive long winters and unpredictable seasons without the constant frantic stress of hunting every single hour. It provided a buffer of safety that allowed us to stay still, to gather around fires, and to develop the deep social bonds that require time and patience. Your body's ability to store and manage energy is what gives you the freedom to lie here tonight in total relaxation, knowing that your internal reserves are more than enough to carry you through the quiet hours until the sun rises again. As you enjoy that freedom of total relaxation, feeling the bed rise up to meet the weight of your limbs, you might notice the gentle rhythmic pulse in your fingertips or the soft warmth in your palms. This warmth is the result of an incredibly intricate circulatory system that is much more than just a network of tubes. Your blood vessels are lined with a single layer of cells called the endothelium, which is so vast that if you were to lay it out flat, it would cover more than 2 tennis courts. This invisible, internal surface is incredibly responsive to your emotional state. When you feel safe, calm and supported, your endothelium releases a gentle gas called nitric oxide, which causes your blood vessels to relax and widen. This process, known as vasodilation, allows your blood to flow more smoothly, lowering your blood pressure and delivering a warming, nourishing tide of oxygen to every corner of your body. It is as if your very veins are sighing with relief. By simply allowing yourself to be calm, you are physically opening the pathways of your body, inviting a state of deep, flowing equilibrium that heals you from the inside out. The body grows heavier, the breath settles, the mind can simply drift. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. You're part of a long, unbroken line of life that has learned, over millions of years, exactly how to find its way back to center. As you find your way back to center, your mind might wander toward the very beginning of the human journey, to the extraordinary way our species ensures the survival of the next generation. We often marvel at the complexity of the adult human, but the true miracle is the long-term planning written into our reproductive biology. Humans are among the very few species that exhibit what is known as cooperative breeding. In our evolutionary past, a mother did not have to raise a child in isolation. We evolved to live in multi-generational groups where grandmothers, aunts, siblings, and friends all played a role in the nurturing of the young. This social safety net allowed human children to have a much longer period of brain development than any other primate. It meant that we could afford to be vulnerable for longer because we were surrounded by a circle of care. This ancient legacy of communal support is why we feel such a deep, instinctive relief when we are around people we trust. We are biologically wired to find safety in the presence of others. Even tonight, as you listen to a voice in the dark, you're tapping into that ancient comforting truth, that you are part of a group, that you're not alone, and that the history of our species is a history of looking out for one another. This history of looking out for one another is mirrored in the way our bodies have learned to communicate without words, through the subtle, ancient language of pheromones and scent. While we often think of our sense of smell as being secondary to our sight, we possess a hidden, vestigial organ located just inside the nose called the vomeronasal organ, or Jacobson's organ. In many other mammals, this organ is highly active, allowing them to detect the invisible chemical signals of emotion, fear, attraction, or calm, lingering in the air. While the human version of this organ has largely regressed, we still remain profoundly sensitive to the chemical atmosphere of our surroundings. We can smell the calm in a peaceful room, or the scent of rain on dry earth, which triggers an ancient, deep-seated sense of relief known as petrichor. This sensitivity helped our ancestors find water and recognize the safety of a familiar camp. When you breathe in the familiar, comforting sense of your own home tonight, you are triggering these ancient neural pathways, sending a direct signal to the emotional centers of your brain that you're in a place of peace, a place where you are truly home. The journey toward home eventually leads back to the very surface of the world we walk upon, and the remarkable way our bodies have adapted to the varied climates of the earth. Consider the simple, beautiful fact of our hair. While we have discussed the fine vellus hair that covers most of our bodies, the hair on our heads serves a very specific protective evolutionary purpose. Because we walk upright, the crown of the head is the part of the body most exposed to the direct midday heat of the sun. The human scalp developed a unique density of hair to act as a natural airy insulation, preventing the brain from overheating in the intense light of the equatorial plains. But more interestingly, the vast variety of hair textures, from tight springy coils to straight flowing strands, represents a magnificent array of solutions to different environmental pressures. Coiled hair provides a built-in cooling gap between the scalp and the sun, allowing air to circulate, while straight hair allows oils to travel down the shaft more easily, protecting the scalp from the drying effects of wind and cold. Every strand of hair on your head is a functional piece of art, a lingering reminder of the specific landscapes your ancestors navigated with grace and ingenuity. As you rest your head, feeling the soft texture of the hair against your skin, you might realize that you are the current peak of a magnificent, unfolding story that is far from over. The same forces that shape the arch of your foot, the curves of your spine, and the depths of your dreaming mind are still at work today, quietly whispering their instructions into the future. You are a living bridge between the ancient past and the unseen future, a masterpiece of adaptation that is currently doing exactly what it was designed to do, finding safety, seeking rest, and allowing the incredible complexity of your being to settle into a state of pure, uncomplicated peace. The night is vast, the story is long, and as the last echoes of the day fade away, you are perfectly positioned to drift into the deep, restorative currents that have carried your ancestors through the dark for millions of years. As those deep, restorative currents of the night carry you further away from the waking hours, your body relies on a brilliant hidden architecture to help you find your absolute center in the dark. When you close your eyes and the visual horizon entirely disappears, you do not lose your sense of place. Deep inside the dense, protective temporal bone of your skull, sitting just behind the ear, there is a tiny, fluid-filled labyrinth known as the semicircular canals. These 3 delicate loops are oriented perfectly in 3-dimensional space, one for up and down, one for side to side, and one for tilting left and right. Millions of years ago, as our ancestors made the monumental decision to lift their hands from the earth and balance their entire body weight on just 2 feet, these tiny canals actually expanded in size. They had to adapt to the profound new physical demands of upright walking. As you lie perfectly still tonight, the microscopic fluid within those ancient, graceful arches has settled completely into a state of glassy calm. They act as your body's perfect internal gyroscopes, constantly and silently whispering to your brain that you are balanced, that you are grounded, and that you are held securely in the quiet gravity of the earth. With the body perfectly balanced and supported, the mind can safely release the heavy, complex burdens it has carried throughout the day. It is a comforting truth of human evolution that you were never designed to hold the entire world together all on your own. In fact, over the last 10,000 years, a mere blink of an eye in evolutionary time, the human brain has actually become slightly smaller. This is not a loss of our brilliance, but rather a magnificent masterpiece of biological optimization. As humans gathered into larger cooperative societies, sharing the warm glow of hearth fires and the quiet safety of villages, the intense pressure to memorize every single survival skill individually began to fade. We began to externalize our knowledge, storing our wisdom in the stories of the elders, the shared tools of the community, and the collective memory of the tribe. The brain physically streamlined itself, shedding unnecessary volume like a highly advanced, beautifully efficient microchip. This quiet shrinking is a physical testament to the power of human trust. You are biologically designed to share the load, to offload your worries to the people around you, and to find profound relief in the shared collective intelligence of your community. As those heavy thoughts dissolve and your breathing finds a slow, natural rhythm, you're actively engaging one of the most remarkable and deeply soothing neural pathways in the mammalian body. Wandering down from the base of your brainstem, travelling through the neck, and branching gently across your chest and abdomen is the magnificent vagus nerve. Its very name means the wanderer. In the deep history of our evolution, a specialized, heavily insulated branch of this nerve developed exclusively in mammals, directly linking the muscles of the face with the rhythm of the heart. This is known as the social engagement system. Because of this beautifully complex nerve, your heart rate can physically slow down simply by hearing the soft, comforting cadence of a familiar voice, or by seeing the relaxed, gentle expression on a loved one's face. It is the biological infrastructure of peace. When you sigh quietly in the dark, or when you let the tiny muscles around your eyes completely soften, the vagus nerve sends a cascading electrical wave of calm directly into your chest, wrapping your heart in a gentle, rhythmic embrace that signals absolute safety to every cell in your body. Deep inside the quiet, resting architecture of the brain, the capacity for that shared safety is built into the very shape of our cells. If you were to look closely at the anterior cingulate cortex, a region buried deep in the center of the mind, you would find a rare, beautiful type of brain cell called a spindle neuron, or a von Economo neuron. These cells look entirely different from the standard neurons in the brain. They are long, elegant, and thick, designed like high-speed botanical roots. In the entire animal kingdom, these magnificent structures are found only in humans, great apes, elephants, and certain species of whales. They exist exclusively in creatures that navigate vast, sweeping landscapes and rely on incredibly deep, lifelong social bonds. Spindle neurons completely bypass the slow, logical processing centers of the brain, allowing for the phenomenon of instant, wordless intuition. They are the cellular engines of profound empathy. When you instinctively feel the mood of a room the moment you walk in, or when you sense the quiet sorrow or sudden joy of a friend before they even speak, you're using this ancient, high-speed biological wiring. It is a network designed purely to bridge the silent gaps between isolated minds, binding us together across the quiet expanse of the world. That deep internal empathy eventually pushed its way to the very surface of our faces, softly rewriting the structure of our skulls to broadcast our gentlest feelings. If you were to look at the fossilized skull of an ancient hominin, you would immediately notice a thick, heavy ridge of solid bone protruding directly above the eyes. This heavy brow acted as a physical shield, absorbing the intense stresses of a coarse, demanding diet. But as our lives grew more deeply intertwined and our survival began to depend on complex cooperation, that heavy, armoured ridge slowly melted away. The human forehead became smooth, flat, and uniquely vertical. We traded physical armour for the delicate miracle of communication. By flattening the brow, a highly sophisticated network of tiny facial muscles was given a smooth canvas upon which to work. We became capable of incredibly subtle, sweeping eyebrow movements, a slight raise to show surprise, a gentle dip to express sympathy, or a quick, silent flash of recognition across a wide, sunlit clearing. This softening of our bone structure allowed us to invent an entire, silent vocabulary of care, ensuring that our deepest emotions could be read and understood by anyone looking gently into our eyes. As the small, expressive muscles of your own forehead completely let go, smoothing out into perfect stillness, allow that wave of relaxation to travel slowly down your arms, pooling warmly in the tips of your fingers. Notice the heavy, resting sensation of your hands against the fabric of the bed. Your hands hold a quiet, elegant departure from the rest of the wild world. Long ago, the ancestors of all primates possessed sharp, curved claws, perfectly evolved for digging into the rough bark of massive ancient trees. But as we moved into a world that required holding fragile objects, gathering small, delicate berries, and eventually comforting our young, claws became a dangerous hindrance. Over millions of years, they flattened out into the smooth, rigid shields of our fingernails. This was not merely a cosmetic change, it was an engineering triumph. The hard surface of the fingernail acts as a solid backstop. When you press your fingertip against a soft surface, the fleshy pad is forced to spread outward against the nail, instantly maximizing the surface area of the skin. This brilliant expansion allows thousands of microscopic sensory nerves to map the texture of the world with exquisite, breathtaking precision. We lost our sharpest weapons, and in return we were gifted the ability to touch the world with unparalleled, loving gentleness. The hands are heavy, the breath is slow, the body is entirely supported by the quiet earth beneath it. There is nothing to grasp, nothing to figure out, and absolutely nowhere else you need to be. When those ancient, sensitive hands gathered the harvest of the changing seasons, bringing sweet roots and earth-warm tubers back to the glow of the fire, the human body adapted to find instant, soothing comfort in the meal. Hidden within the microscopic spirals of your DNA are multiple, repeated copies of a specific gene known as AMY1. This gene is responsible for producing an enzyme called salivary amylase. While our closest primate cousins have only 1 or 2 copies of this gene, humans possess many, many more. This incredible genetic multiplication evolved precisely when our ancestors learned to use fire to bake starchy root vegetables pulled from the earth. Because of this abundance of amylase, the very act of digestion begins the exact moment food touches your tongue. The enzyme instantly starts snipping apart complex carbohydrates, releasing a sudden, subtle wave of simple sugars. It is the biological reason why warm, starchy foods, like baked roots or soft breads, feel so immediately grounding and deeply comforting. Our bodies evolved to physically reward us with a sense of peace and satisfaction the moment we tasted the warm, nourishing results of a shared communal harvest. This profound reliance on the warmth and care of the community fundamentally changed the way human beings enter the world. We are born in a state of breathtaking vulnerability, a unique evolutionary condition known as secondary altriciality. because the human pelvis had to remain narrow to support the graceful, highly efficient mechanics of upright walking, and because the human brain was evolving to become so massive a biological compromise had to be made. Human gestation essentially finishes outside the physical safety of the womb. We are born early. For the first entire year of life, a human infant is utterly helpless, entirely dependent on the gentle hands and watchful eyes of its tribe. But this extreme vulnerability is actually our species' greatest hidden strength, because the brain is doing its most explosive foundational wiring while completely exposed to the outside world. It is literally being sculpted by the environment. The brain of a child is bathed in the specific sunlight of their home, the exact music of their mother tongue, and the unique rhythmic textures of their culture. We are not born with hardwired, inflexible instincts. We are born porous, open, and ready to absorb the world, making us the most beautifully adaptable creatures to ever walk the earth. When that open, curious infant finally pulls itself up on unsteady legs to take its first steps across the earth, it activates a brilliant hidden mechanism in the sole of the foot that makes human movement entirely unique. Stretching from the base of the heel to the very root of the toes is a thick, incredibly strong band of connective tissue known as the plantar fascia. When your foot is resting flat on the ground, this tissue is relatively relaxed, allowing the foot to be a soft, flexible cushion that perfectly adapts to the uneven textures of stones, grass, or sand. But the moment you begin to step forward and your toes bend upward, a masterpiece of biological engineering occurs. This action, known as the windlass mechanism, instantly pulls the plantar fascia drum tight. It draws the heel bone and the toes slightly closer together, instantly raising the arch of the foot and locking all the tiny bones into a solid, unmoving block. In the fraction of a second it takes to step, your foot transforms from a soft, shock-absorbing landing pad into a rigid, powerful lever that effortlessly propels you forward. It is a silent, flawless mechanical transformation that happens thousands of times a day, carrying you smoothly and efficiently through the beautiful, shifting landscapes of your life. As early humans walked across those vast, shifting landscapes, leaving the light of the daytime sun behind them, they eventually invited a completely different kind of life into the warm, illuminated circle of their evening fires. Tens of thousands of years ago, bold, curious wolves stepped out of the freezing dark and sat at the edge of the human camp. Over generations, a profound, completely unique biological bridge was built between our two species. As humans and dogs learned to live together, to hunt together, and to share the quiet warmth of the hearth, our nervous systems actually became intertwined. Today, when a human and a dog make gentle, relaxed eye contact, the brains of both creatures experience a simultaneous massive surge of oxytocin, the powerful neurochemical of love, trust, and deep maternal bonding. It is the absolute only known instance in the natural world where two entirely different species have hijacked each other's internal bonding pathways. The deep settling comfort you feel when a resting animal leans its heavy weight against your leg is an ancient chemical echo of the very first time two different minds looked across a flickering fire, recognized a kindred spirit in the dark, and silently agreed that they no longer had to face the vast, unknown world alone. As the imagined glow of that ancient fire slowly fades to a soft, deep red, and the shared, rhythmic breath of those ancient companions blends into the quiet sound of your own breathing, the mind sinks even further into the velvet depths. The historical tapestry of your body continues to unroll, revealing even more quiet miracles hidden in the architecture of your sleep, waiting gently in the shadows as the night expands into perfect, undisturbed peace. As that perfect, undisturbed peace settles over the physical body, the mind does not simply switch off. It enters a state of breathtaking, highly orchestrated maintenance. Throughout the daylight hours, the constant firing of billions of neurons creates a buildup of microscopic metabolic byproducts, a natural biological fog that slowly accumulates in the spaces between the cells. But as you drift into the deeper stages of sleep, an astonishing evolutionary mechanism known as the glymphatic system suddenly awakens. The glial cells in your brain actually shrink by up to 60%, dramatically widening the hidden, intricate pathways of your mind. A clear, cool tide of cerebrospinal fluid begins to pulse rhythmically through these expanded channels, sweeping away the heavy debris of the day. It is a literal, physical cleansing of the mind. This rhythmic washing evolved to protect the delicate architecture of the brain, ensuring that every time the sun rises, you are gifted with a fresh, clear perspective, your thoughts washed beautifully clean by the quiet internal rivers of the night. As this soothing, restorative tide moves seamlessly through the mind, it washes over a massive, magnificent bridge of white matter that rests at the very center of your brain. This sweeping bundle of more than 200 million nerve fibers is called the corpus callosum. In the long story of our evolution, as the human brain rapidly expanded and specialized, the left and right hemispheres took on different, beautifully complex roles. One side learned to master the sharp, precise rules of logic and language, while the other embraced the fluid, boundless realms of intuition, spatial awareness, and art. The corpus callosum evolved to be the ultimate peacemaker between these two worlds. It is an information superhighway, allowing the logical and the dreaming parts of yourself to perfectly synchronize in a silent, continuous symphony. It ensures that you're never entirely divided, constantly weaving your thoughts and feelings together into a single, beautifully unified experience of the world. Protecting the fragile windows that feed this vast, unified mind is an external adaptation of quiet, mathematical perfection. When you close your eyes, the delicate arcs of your eyelashes interlock, creating a soft, perfect seal against the outside elements. But these tiny hairs are far more than a simple barrier against dust. Evolutionary biologists and fluid dynamicists have discovered that the eyelashes of mammals, including humans, have evolved to a highly specific length, exactly 1/3 the width of the eye itself. This precise golden ratio of biology acts as a microscopic windbreak. When you walk through a sudden breeze or a gust of dry summer air, your eyelashes seamlessly redirect the airflow away from the surface of the eye, preventing the precious, tear-filled moisture from evaporating. It is an aerodynamic marvel sitting softly on your eyelids, a silent protector that was perfectly sculpted by the wind across millions of years, keeping your vision clear, comfortable and bright. The eyelids grow heavier now, perfectly sealed against the waking world. You can let the sharp boundaries of the day blur and fade. The mind is entirely safe to simply drift on the quiet, unhurried currents of the room. When those resting eyes were open, taking in the vast, distant light of the evening stars, they were utilizing a strange and wonderful quirk of our evolutionary past. The human retina, the light-sensitive canvas at the back of the eye, is actually wired backward. The light-gathering photoreceptors are buried at the very bottom, hidden behind a dense thicket of neurons and blood vessels. In theory, this arrangement should make our vision incredibly blurry. But evolution provided an elegant living solution. Scattered throughout this dense thicket are specialized structures called Muller glia cells. These long, transparent columns act exactly like biological fiber optic cables. They capture the incoming starlight at the surface and channel it directly through the cellular clutter, delivering it purely and clearly to the receptors below. This brilliant microscopic workaround allows us to gaze up at the Milky Way with startling clarity, proving that biology does not need to be perfect from the start. It simply finds the most beautiful, inventive ways to bring the light out of the dark. As the light of those distant stars gives way to the absolute darkness behind your eyelids, the world of sound becomes incredibly intimate. The quiet hum of the room, or the soft rustle of your own breath, is captured by an anatomical miracle with origins deep in the ancient scaly past. Deep inside your middle ear lie the malleus, incus, and stapes, the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. They are the 3 smallest bones in the human body, so incredibly tiny they could easily fit balanced together on the edge of a coin. But millions of years ago, long before the first mammals existed, the ancestors of these bones were completely different. They were the heavy, hinged jaw bones of ancient earthbound reptiles. As our early mammalian ancestors evolved, the jaw structure profoundly changed, and these heavy bones slowly unmoored themselves. Over eons, they migrated upward into the skull, shrinking down to become delicate, exquisitely sensitive amplifiers of vibration. The very bones that once helped ancient creatures consume their prey were beautifully repurposed into delicate instruments of music, allowing us to hear the softest, most tender whispers in the night. The resonance of those soft whispers travels down through the neck, entering a body that is held together not just by a rigid skeleton, but by a continuous shimmering silvery web. Beneath the surface of your skin, wrapping around every single muscle, bone, nerve, and organ, is an unbroken matrix of connective tissue called fascia. Imagine a fine, glistening spiderweb, or a soft internal hammock that stretches without interruption from the crown of your head all the way to the soles of your feet. In the past, anatomists often ignored this translucent tissue, but we now understand it is an evolutionary masterpiece of tensegrity, the architectural balance of continuous tension. It distributes physical stress smoothly and evenly across the entire body, ensuring that no single muscle ever has to bear a heavy burden alone. When you completely relax, this silvery web gently cradles your internal world, holding everything in a state of suspended, weightless grace, allowing you to let go without ever falling apart. As you sink deeper into the soft surface beneath you, the body feels entirely supported by this invisible, internal hammock. There is absolutely nothing left to carry. The breath becomes a slow, easy tide, rolling in and smoothly rolling out. Resting at the very lowest point of that supportive web, securely anchoring the base of your spine, is a small triangular cluster of fused bones known as the coccyx. This tiny structure is the quiet, lingering echo of a physical tale that our primate ancestors lost roughly 25 million years ago. As the great apes grew larger and eventually began to transition toward a life on the ground, a long sweeping tail was no longer necessary for balance in the high canopy. But evolution rarely discards something completely. Instead, it elegantly re-engineers it. The remnant of the tail curled gently inward and became the crucial anchor point for an intricate basket of muscles known as the pelvic floor. This inward folding provided the massive structural support needed for our internal organs as we stood completely upright. And perhaps most beautifully, it created the anatomical cushion that allowed humans to do something entirely new, to sit comfortably upright on the hard earth for hours at a time, gathering closely around the warm, dancing light of the first communal campfires. With the heavy weight of the body resting comfortably, the deep, weight-bearing joints of the legs are finally free to release their long tension. Inside your resting knees are 2 tiny, exceptionally smooth pads of specialized cartilage called the menisci. They are shaped exactly like 2 delicate facing crescent moons. As early humans abandoned the dense forest to run across the vast, unforgiving hardpan of the open savanna, the knee joint was subjected to unprecedented amounts of physical force. Bone striking heavily upon bone would have shattered our ability to travel. These tiny, lunar-shaped cushions evolved to act as profound shock absorbers, smoothly distributing the heavy, rhythmic impact of running, jumping, and walking. They operate exactly like biological ball bearings, bathed in a slippery, nourishing fluid that reduces friction to almost zero. Every single step you took today was softened and protected by these hidden crescents, absorbing the shock of the earth so that you could glide smoothly across the varied surface of the world. As the body glides into a state of deep, unmoving rest, the cooling air of the night might brush gently against your skin. Long before the invention of woven blankets, thick coats, or heated rooms, our distant ancestors relied on a brilliant internal furnace to survive the freezing, star-filled nights of the ancient world. Scattered deep within the upper back, along the spine, and around the collarbones is a unique type of tissue known as brown adipose tissue, or brown fat. Unlike regular white fat, which simply stores excess energy, brown fat is absolutely packed with iron-rich mitochondria. When the temperature drops, this remarkable tissue actively burns energy to generate pure, radiant heat, entirely without the need for shivering. It is an ancient, built-in thermal blanket. This biological furnace is especially abundant in newborn babies, who cannot yet shiver to warm themselves. It is a deeply maternal adaptation written directly into our biology, a quiet, invisible fire that kindles itself in the dark, ensuring that the most vulnerable among us are always kept safe and warm. Warmed by that internal fire, the chest rises and falls with a calm, absolute certainty, driven by an organ that holds its own independent, flawless rhythm. Deep inside the upper right chamber of your heart is a tiny, highly specialized cluster of cells known as the sinoatrial node. It is the heart's natural biological pacemaker. While the brain constantly sends complex signals to the rest of the body, telling the lungs to breathe and the muscles to move, this microscopic cluster of cells generates its own electrical spark, completely independent of the conscious mind. It is a steady, tireless metronome that began ticking long before you were even born, and it will continue to beat faithfully, thousands of times a night, without you ever having to ask it. It is the deepest, most profound proof that you are fundamentally built to survive. The rhythm of your life is automated, secure, and gently sustaining itself through the quiet hours. As you listen to the steady, comforting drumbeat of your own pulse in the quiet of the room, you are resting softly on the shores of an ancient internal ocean, waiting seamlessly for the narrative of our deep past to wash over the next, unexplored horizon of the dreaming mind. As that ancient internal ocean of your heartbeat continues its flawless, quiet rhythm, it pushes the warmth of life down to the very farthest reaches of your resting body, all the way to the heavy, unmoving heels of your feet. Connecting the powerful swell of your calf muscle to the sturdy base of your heel is a magnificent, glowing band of tissue known as the Achilles tendon. It is the thickest and strongest tendon in the entire human body, and it represents a profound, beautiful evolutionary leap. When our early ancestors slowly left the dense, shadowy forest to traverse the sprawling, sun-baked plains of the ancient earth, they needed a way to move efficiently over incredibly vast distances. The Achilles tendon evolved to act exactly like a massive organic spring. With every single step you take, as your heel lifts from the earth, this dense band stretches, silently storing the kinetic energy of your own downward weight. As your foot pushes off, it snaps back, releasing that stored energy and effortlessly propelling you forward. Because of this beautifully elastic architecture, walking and running became less of a demanding muscular effort and more of a rhythmic gliding bounce. Your legs were built by evolution to coast upon the earth, turning the simple act of travelling into a smooth, energy-saving dance that carried our resilient species across the sweeping expanse of entire continents. That long, rhythmic journey across the continents was eventually guided by a profound change in how we perceive the fading light of the day, a change that completely altered our relationship with the night. If you have ever caught the gaze of a deer, a cat, or a dog in the beam of a light at night, you have seen their eyes flash with a bright, luminous reflection. This is caused by the tapetum lucidum, a mirror-like layer resting just behind the retina that bounces moonlight back through the eye, granting these animals incredible, piercing night vision. But deep in our primate history, our ancestors quietly lost this reflective mirror. We completely traded our biological ability to pierce the darkness for the gift of breathtaking high-definition daytime acuity and vibrant colour vision. Without that reflective layer scattering light inside the eye, our daylight vision became incredibly sharp, allowing us to see the finest, delicate textures of a leaf, the subtle, shifting emotions in a friend's expression, and the exact, brilliant crimson hue of a ripening berry. By losing our night vision, we surrendered the deep darkness to the wild. We accepted the night as a time to stop travelling, a time to gather closely around the safety of the fire, and a time to let our highly tuned eyes finally close and rest. As the eyes close and the visual world softly retreats, the body naturally relies on the comforting vibrations it can create from within to soothe itself. In the quiet of a resting room, the simple, soft sound of a hum can instantly calm the nervous system, and this ability is a direct result of a beautiful architectural shift in the human throat. In almost all other mammals, the larynx or voice box sits very high up in the throat, designed primarily to protect the airway during swallowing. But as human beings evolved, our larynx slowly descended, dropping down deep into the neck. This descent created a vast, hollow space just above the vocal cords, a perfect biological resonance chamber. This newly formed space allowed the sounds we make to echo, deepen, and vibrate powerfully through the solid bones of our skull and our chest. It gave us the physical ability to produce the rich, varied, and complex vowels of spoken language. But perhaps more importantly, it gave us the profound power to soothe one another. That deep resonant chamber is what allows a parent to hum a low, vibrating lullaby, a sound that physically resonates against the chest of a resting child, wrapping them instantly in a warm acoustic blanket of pure, unconditional safety. As those soft internal vibrations fade into the silence of the room, the body grows heavier still. The chest rises and falls without any conscious effort. The breath settles entirely into its own natural sweeping rhythm. There is absolutely nothing you need to hold on to, and the mind can simply drift on the slow turning currents of the night. Floating gently on those quiet currents, you might feel the broad, flat expanse of your upper back resting squarely and heavily against the mattress beneath you. The way your shoulders lie perfectly flat is an evolutionary luxury born from our deep arboreal past. In most terrestrial mammals, like dogs or horses, the shoulder blades are positioned strictly on the sides of the ribcage, locking their front limbs into a permanent forward-facing column designed for rapid running. But millions of years ago, as our primate ancestors learned to reach upward and swing gracefully from branch to branch in the high canopy of the forest, our shoulder blades slowly migrated to the very back of the ribcage. This dorsal shift flattened our torsos completely and opened our chest broadly to the world. It granted our arms a miraculous 360-degree range of motion. Today, long after we left the ancient trees, this flattened, expansive architecture remains with us. It is the very biological reason you can reach your arms out wide to embrace someone you love, and it is the reason you can lie perfectly flat on your back, gazing up at the infinite scattered diamonds of a starry sky, your chest wide open, breathing easily and completely at peace. Hidden just behind the soft, resting muscles of your jaw, within the teeth themselves, lies an incredible, microscopic archive of the days when you were small and growing beneath that very same sky. Human tooth enamel is the hardest, most heavily mineralized substance in the entire body, built to withstand a lifetime of constant use. But it does not grow all at once. As a human child develops, the protective enamel of their teeth is laid down in microscopic daily layers, building outward much like the slow, sweeping rings of an ancient silent tree. These delicate layers, scientifically known as the striae of Retzius, capture a perfect, permanent record of your early life. The rhythm of your childhood, the shifting seasons of your physical growth, and even the exact monumental moment you were born, marked forever by a distinct, slightly darker line called the neonatal line, are fossilized perfectly inside your smile. You're carrying a silent, microscopic diary of your own history, a beautiful biological testament to the days you spent growing slowly and safely under the sun, securely preserved in the deepest, quietest architecture of your mouth. That profound sense of safety and grounding is monitored constantly, even now, in the deepest, most hidden chambers of your skull. While we have explored the graceful semicircular canals that track your body's movement through space, there are two other tiny, fluid-filled sacs in your inner ear called the utricle and the saccule. Resting peacefully inside these delicate hidden chambers are thousands of microscopic calcium carbonate crystals known as otoliths, which translates literally to ear stones. These tiny stones are naturally heavier than the fluid surrounding them. Whenever you tilt your head, or even when you simply lie perfectly still, the invisible force of gravity gently pulls on these microscopic crystals, pressing them softly against a bed of ultra-sensitive hair cells. This means that at every single moment of your life, whether you're waking or sleeping, your body is engaged in a continuous, deeply tactile conversation with the gravitational pull of the Earth itself. You never have to wonder if you're anchored. These tiny stones provide a permanent, unwavering signal to your brain that the Earth is holding you, keeping you securely tethered to the ground while your mind is completely free to wander the boundless, shifting landscapes of your dreams. The weight of the body is fully surrendered to that gentle, unwavering gravity. The muscles have absolutely nothing left to do but soften and release. The breath is a quiet, continuous loop, and the mind is perfectly free to let the sharp edges of the waking world drift entirely away. As the world drifts away and the face relaxes completely, the very shape of the human mouth reveals a remarkable, gentle adaptation meant entirely for connection. Humans are the absolute only creatures on the planet with fully averted lips, meaning the soft, highly sensitive inner mucosa rolls outward to form the visible, permanent surface of the mouth. This unique outward-facing structure is packed with an extraordinarily high density of nerve endings, making it one of the most sensitive, delicate tactile surfaces on the entire human body. Evolutionary anthropologists believe this completely unique design was sculpted primarily for the profound, nurturing bond between a mother and her child, allowing for the gentle, sensitive and secure mechanics of early feeding. But as our species grew more deeply social and emotionally complex, these soft, expressive boundaries of the mouth took on an entirely new purpose. They became the delicate instruments of our most tender, intimate communications. They are sculpted perfectly to allow us to form the incredibly subtle, breathy sounds of a whispered secret in the dark, and they give us the physical, emotional ability to express deep affection through the quiet, universal language of a gentle kiss. That quiet affection extended beyond our closest familial bonds to the way we move together across the vast, rolling expanses of the ancient earth. If you cast your mind back down to the resting heavy weight of your feet, you will find a subtle, easily overlooked modification that completely changed our destiny as a species. Compared to our closest primate relatives, human toes are remarkably, surprisingly short. In the dense ancient forests, long curved toes were absolutely essential for grasping thick branches and climbing vertically into the high canopy. But once we committed to walking endlessly upon the flat earth, long toes became a severe mechanical liability, requiring massive amounts of physical energy to lift, stabilize and balance with every single stride. Over thousands of generations, evolution beautifully and patiently refined our feet, shrinking the toes down to perfectly proportioned, incredibly sturdy stubs. This tiny, elegant shift in scale reduced the mechanical work of walking by an astonishing degree. It allowed the foot to roll smoothly and effortlessly from the heel to the toe with almost zero wasted effort. It is a brilliant, silent reminder that sometimes the most profound advancements do not come from growing larger or more complex, but from gently paring away what is no longer needed, smoothing the path for a lighter, vastly easier journey. Smoothing the path of our physical form went beyond the structural shape of the bones, fundamentally changing the very texture of how we interface with the elements of the natural world. Beneath the soft, outer surface of human skin lies a continuous, remarkably even layer of subcutaneous fat. In the rest of the primate world, body fat is minimal and usually concentrated heavily around the internal organs. But humans evolved this smooth, insulating blanket that wraps completely and gently around our entire musculature. This adaptation is what gives the human form its distinctly smooth, flowing contours, softly blurring the sharp, defined lines of the muscles beneath the skin. Evolutionary biologists often refer to this unique feature as our internal wetsuit. It evolved to help us regulate our internal temperature in vastly shifting, unpredictable climates, keeping us insulated during cold, rain-swept migrations, and providing a crucial buffer as we waded through ancient rivers and cool coastlines to forage for food. Tonight, as you rest in the quiet of your room, this incredibly soft protective layer acts as a permanent biological blanket, holding your internal warmth closely against your core and providing a gentle, yielding cushion between your resting body and the physical world. Wrapped safely in that biological warmth, your brain is now slowly descending into the most profound and unique stage of the human experience. As our ancient ancestors evolved to trust the safety of their communal fires and the sturdy protective walls of their shelters, the very architecture of our sleep began to fundamentally change. Human beings experience a unique stage of rest known as slow-wave sleep, characterized by the emergence of massive, rolling electrical currents in the brain called delta waves. These magnificent waves sweep across the cortex in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, acting exactly like a deep neurological ocean tide. During this time, the brain is almost entirely disconnected from the demanding sensory noise of the outside world. It is an evolutionary luxury of the absolute highest order. In this state of total, profound surrender, the brain is quietly transferring the fragile, short-term memories of the day into the secure, permanent archives of your deep memory. It is silently weaving the complex story of your life together. The fact that you can reach this state of absolute defenseless rest is a beautiful testament to millions of years of building safety, trust, and physical sanctuary. You're partaking in the ultimate evolutionary reward, the absolute freedom to close your eyes, to let the rolling waves of sleep wash completely over you, and to rest entirely, safely, and deeply until the breaking of the morning light. When the long, unbroken waves of the night begin to gently thin, and the deeper stages of sleep slowly prepare the mind to eventually welcome the breaking of the morning light, your closed eyes hold one more magnificent hidden secret of clarity. In the very center of your retina, resting perfectly in the darkest, quietest back wall of your eye, there is a microscopic, shallow depression known as the fovea centralis. While the rest of your eye is beautifully adapted to sense the soft, shifting movements and shadows of the peripheral world, this tiny, pin-sized pit is packed with an incredibly dense, tightly woven cluster of color-sensing cones. It is the absolute epicenter of human visual acuity. Millions of years ago, as our ancestors stood tall in the tall grasses of the savannah, they needed to be able to focus with breathtaking, laser-like precision on a single, distant point, to read the subtle, shifting emotions on a companion's face from across a clearing, or to perfectly thread a piece of dried grass through a tiny carved bone needle. The fovea evolved to grant us this miracle of high-definition focus. Even now, resting in the dark, you possess this microscopic lens of pure clarity, an evolutionary masterpiece waiting silently behind your eyelids to bring the vast, complex world into perfect, immediate sharpness the moment you open your eyes. As you draw in a slow, deep breath of the cool night air, that air begins a journey through another profoundly unique architectural feature of the human face. If you were to look at the profile of a chimpanzee or a gorilla, you would see that their noses lie almost entirely flat against their faces. But human beings evolved a prominent, protruding nasal bridge that extends outward into the world. This external nose is not merely a structural difference, it is a highly sophisticated biological climate control system. as early humans began to migrate out of the warm, humid equatorial forests and into the freezing, arid tundras of the northern continents. Breathing in the brutal, icy air directly into the delicate lungs would have been shocking and deeply damaging. The projecting nose evolved to create a longer, more complex internal tunnel. It forces the inhaled air to swirl and tumble over a series of warm, moist, heavily vascularized ridges called turbinates. In the fraction of a second it takes for a breath to travel from your nostrils to your throat, the air is dramatically warmed, perfectly humidified, and gently filtered. Your nose is an ancient, silent hearth fire, ensuring that no matter how cold or harsh the world outside may be, the air that finally reaches your deepest centre is always soft, warm, and entirely safe. Following that soft, warmed breath down into the throat reveals a delicate biological crossroads that requires a quiet, continuous dance of perfect timing. Deep inside your neck, the pathway for the air you breathe and the pathway for the water you drink must physically cross over one another. To manage this incredibly complex intersection without disaster, evolution sculpted a tiny leaf-shaped flap of elastic cartilage known as the epiglottis. Whenever you're simply resting and breathing, this gentle leaf stands beautifully upright, allowing the invisible tide of air to flow smoothly down into the lungs. But the exact moment you swallow, even a tiny unconscious swallow of moisture in the middle of the night, the epiglottis acts with flawless sweeping grace. It folds perfectly downward, acting like a biological trapdoor, completely sealing off the windpipe so that liquid is guided safely into the stomach. It is an unconscious, deeply protective embrace that happens hundreds of times a day without you ever having to ask it. It stands as a silent, vigilant guardian at the gateway of your breath, allowing you to rest in complete, undisturbed confidence. The breath is smooth. The body is entirely supported by the soft, yielding surface beneath it. You do not need to manage the complex rhythms of your own survival. The ancient, brilliant mechanics of your form are quietly carrying you, allowing your mind to simply let go and drift further into the dark. As your mind drifts, entering the expansive, dreaming landscapes of sleep, the physical brain itself is doing something we once believed was entirely impossible. For a very long time, science taught that human beings were born with all the brain cells they would ever have, and that the mind was a static, unyielding vault. But deep within the centre of the brain, curled elegantly like a seahorse, lies a structure called the hippocampus, the absolute heart of human memory and emotional learning. Evolutionary biologists have discovered that this ancient region is actually a site of continuous miraculous rebirth. Through a process called adult neurogenesis, your hippocampus is quietly giving birth to hundreds of brand new, completely fresh neurons every single day of your life. These infant cells migrate slowly into the existing neural networks, offering the brain a constant rolling supply of flexibility and renewal. This incredible adaptation evolved to ensure that our ancestors could always adapt to new environments, learn the shifting patterns of the stars, and remember the winding paths to hidden fresh water. It means that your mind is never truly set in stone. Even as you rest tonight, you are quietly growing a beautifully new, vibrant part of yourself, perfectly preparing your mind to absorb the gentle wonders of tomorrow. To observe those wonders clearly, the windows of the mind require their own constant microscopic ocean to remain perfectly transparent. Every time you blink, a delicate, sweeping layer of moisture washes across the entire surface of your eye. These are known as basal tears, and they are vastly different from the tears we cry in moments of sorrow or sudden joy. Basal tears are a highly complex, three-layered biological shield. The innermost layer is a soft mucus that binds the tear directly to the eye. The middle is a thick, hydrating layer of pure water, and the outermost layer is a microscopic slick of smooth oil that prevents the water from evaporating into the air. But the true evolutionary magic of this constant, invisible ocean lies hidden within the water itself, It is saturated with a powerful, completely natural enzyme called lysozyme. This gentle enzyme acts as a tireless biological protector, naturally dissolving the cell walls of any wandering microscopic dust or bacteria that might try to settle on the vulnerable surface of the eye. Your eyes are bathed in a permanent protective atmosphere of their own making, a quiet, purifying sea that keeps your vision brilliant, safe, and beautifully clear. As the eyes rest securely behind their heavy lids, completely shielded and cleansed, that same sense of deep, protective cushioning extends all the way down to the very foundation of your body. When you think of the heavy, unyielding weight of the human heel striking the hard earth, it seems like a beautifully impossible task to endure over a lifetime without shattering. To solve this, evolution placed a specialized architectural marvel directly beneath the skin of your foot, known as the plantar fat pad. Unlike the fat that the body stores for energy, which ebbs and flows with the changing seasons, the fat pad on the heel is permanent and structurally unique. It is intricately divided into tiny, tightly packed honeycomb-like chambers by tough fibrous walls of connective tissue called septa. These microscopic walls lock the soft fat permanently into place, preventing it from squishing out to the sides when you stand. It acts exactly like a high-performance biological shock absorber, a dense cushion of microscopic pillows that elegantly catches the heavy, downward force of gravity with every single step. It is a quiet, unsung masterpiece of design, ensuring that the heavy, rhythmic journey of walking across the earth always ends in a soft, forgiving embrace. If you were to imagine those cushioned feet walking slowly through the cool silver dew of a morning meadow, or your hands reaching into the clear, rushing water of a cold stream, you might recall the way your skin visibly changes when submerged. For decades, it was a common misconception that the skin on our fingertips and toes wrinkled in water simply because they were passively soaking up moisture like a dry sponge. But modern evolutionary science has revealed a vastly more fascinating, deeply active truth. The wrinkling of your fingers is actually a highly coordinated involuntary response, triggered directly by your sympathetic nervous system. The moment your nervous system detects that your hands have been submerged in wet, slippery conditions for a prolonged period, it automatically fires tiny electrical signals to constrict the blood vessels just beneath the skin. This rapid shrinking pulls the upper layer of the skin downward into deep, distinct valleys. Your body is instantly and actively creating a network of biological rain treads. This stunning adaptation evolved to channel water away from the gripping surface of your fingers, allowing early humans to securely harvest wet vegetation, pull smooth stones from riverbeds, and maintain a firm, life-saving grip in the pouring rain. Your body is always actively reading the world around it, smoothly reshaping itself to keep you safe and capable in every changing environment. The hands feel heavy now, resting warmly and comfortably in the dry, soft sanctuary of your bed. The fingers can uncurl entirely. The nervous system can release its careful watch. You are held, you are safe, and the mind can drift gracefully into the deepest, quietest valleys of sleep. Within that quiet safety, the muscles of the face and the jaw sink into perfect relaxation, revealing the gentle, rounded shape of the human bite. If you compare the teeth of a human being to the sharp, jagged jaws of the ancient predators we once shared the world with, our mouths look astonishingly soft and remarkably flat. We do not possess the towering, lethal canines of a lion, nor the massive, scissor-like shearing teeth of a wolf. Instead, human teeth evolved to be the ultimate, beautifully balanced tools of a peaceful omnivore. Our front teeth, the incisors, are shaped like delicate, tiny shovels, perfectly designed to gently bite into the soft flesh of a ripe fruit, or seamlessly sever a tender green leaf. Our back teeth, the molars, are wide, heavily enamelled and gently rounded, acting like tiny mortar and pestle stones to slowly, rhythmically grind down seeds and warm, cooked roots. We traded the terrifying, specialised weapons of the wild for a mouth built entirely for variety, adaptability, and the slow, communal enjoyment of a shared harvest. Our smile is an evolutionary signature of peace, a physical testament to a species that survived not by fierce conquest, but by gracefully adapting to the gentle, endlessly varied gifts of the earth. This gentle, varied diet nourished a body that had entirely reconfigured its centre of gravity to stand tall beneath the sky. When human ancestors rose up to walk on two legs, the internal organs of the abdomen, the heavy winding lengths of the intestines, and the vital organs of the lower torso suddenly faced a profound new challenge. In animals that walk on all fours, these organs are securely suspended from the horizontal spine like a heavy biological hammock. But when we stood completely upright, gravity threatened to pull everything downward. To brilliantly solve this, the human pelvis completely transformed its ancient shape. Instead of remaining tall and flat, the hip bones flared outward and curved deeply inward, creating a wide, beautiful structural basin. Your pelvis literally evolved into a profound, bony bowl. It serves as the physical cradle of your entire core, softly and securely catching the weight of your internal world. It is the solid, unwavering foundation of your upright posture, a wide, deeply curved sanctuary of bone that gracefully holds your center, perfectly balanced and completely protected against the relentless, invisible pull of the earth. Protected within that sweeping, bony cradle, the earliest and most delicate stages of human life are nurtured by a biological process that reveals the absolute depths of our evolutionary care. When a human mother feeds her newborn child, she is providing a complex liquid gold that contains a profound hidden mystery. Within human breast milk are hundreds of highly complex specialized sugars known as human milk oligosaccharides. For a long time, scientists were entirely baffled by these sugars because the infant's stomach is completely incapable of digesting them. They simply pass straight through the child's system. It seemed like a massive evolutionary waste of precious energy. But the beautiful, awe-inspiring truth was eventually discovered. These specific, intricate sugars are not produced to feed the baby at all. They are produced specifically and exclusively to feed the beneficial bacteria slowly growing in the infant's lower intestine. The mother's body is spending vast amounts of vital energy to silently cultivate an invisible, protective, microscopic garden inside her child. It is an act of deep, evolutionary foresight. We are a species so devoted to the survival of our young that we evolved to nourish not just the child we can see, but the unseen, vital world within them, building a foundation of resilience and health from the very first breath. As the profound, quiet depth of that maternal care echoes through the architecture of your own resting form, the intricate, delicate connections of your biology begin to feel less like a clinical machine and far more like a sweeping, unbroken poem of survival. You're the living, breathing culmination of countless soft, resilient choices made over millions of years, an exquisite masterpiece of balance, renewal, and endless, quiet grace. And as the mind sinks further away from the edges of the waking world, the ancient invisible threads of that grand history continue to weave their steady, comforting patterns through the silent, undiscovered countries of your sleep. As the ancient invisible threads of that grand history continue to weave their steady, comforting patterns through the silent, undiscovered countries of your sleep, the physical architecture of your rest reveals yet another masterpiece of biological balance. When you surrender the heavy weight of your head to the softness of the pillow beneath you, you're experiencing the profound relief of an evolutionary shift that completely realigned our relationship with gravity. In our deep primate past, the spinal column connected to the very back of the skull. This rearward connection required a massive, thick complex of neck muscles that had to be constantly, fiercely tensed just to keep the face pointing forward. But as humans slowly rose up to stand on 2 feet, the opening at the base of the skull, known as the foramen magnum, began a slow, magnificent migration. Over countless generations, it moved directly to the absolute dead center of the skull's base. Because of this flawless central pivot point, the heavy, dreaming globe of the human head balances almost effortlessly atop the delicate column of the spine. We are the only creatures whose heads rest in a state of perfect, effortless equilibrium. Tonight, as the muscles of your neck completely let go, they are relying on this brilliant centered architecture, allowing you to release all the tension of the waking day without ever losing your center. This deep, architectural support for the resting head is beautifully mirrored in the specialized tissues that shape the softest, most vulnerable faces among us. If you imagine the exceptionally round, peaceful face of a sleeping infant, you might picture their famously full, soft cheeks. While we often think of this simply as a sign of health, those full cheeks are the result of a highly specific, temporary evolutionary adaptation known as the buccal fat pads. These dense, structured cushions of fat exist entirely separately from the regular subcutaneous fat of the body. They evolved to act as rigid biological scaffolding inside the mouth of a newborn. Without these dense, stabilizing pads, an infant's cheeks would collapse inward under the negative pressure required to draw milk. They are a temporary vital mechanism of survival, a biological safety cushion that ensures the earliest, most critical moments of nourishment are completely effortless. As we grow older, and we no longer need this specific suction mechanism, the pads slowly thin out, reshaping the contours of the adult face. But in the beginning, they provide every human child with that universally soft cherubic profile, a physical manifestation of nature building a safe, cushioned environment for the very start of life. The soft, unhurried ease of those early days is often guided by the gentle, protective hands of those who watch over us, hands equipped with an invisible superpower buried deep within the forearm. When you reach out to lightly brush a stray hair from a resting face, or when you hold a fragile object with extreme delicacy, you're using a muscle that is entirely, exclusively human. It is called the flexor pollicis longus. In our closest primate relatives, the tendons that control the bending of the fingers and the thumb are often tethered together, creating a powerful, sweeping grip perfectly suited for wrapping tightly around thick branches. But human evolution completely separated the thumb's operating system. The flexor pollicis longus is a long, independent muscle dedicated entirely to bending the very last joint of the human thumb. This single, quiet separation of muscle fibre gave birth to the precision grip. It transformed the hand from a blunt instrument of climbing into a masterpiece of tenderness and fine control. Because of this one hidden muscle, you possess the capacity for the most exquisite, gentle touch, allowing you to interact with the fragile, beautiful details of the world without ever causing harm. As your own thumbs relax entirely, and your hands sink deeper into the warm fabric of the bed, the entire body can safely follow that cue of deep physical release. The breath settles into an effortless circular rhythm. There is no need to grasp at passing thoughts or analyze the fading echoes of the day. You're held in a space of complete, unwavering safety, allowing the physical form to soften completely and drift into the dark. When that profound sense of safety washes over us in the waking world, it naturally surfaces on the face in a way that completely inverted the ancient laws of the wild. If you were to observe almost any other animal in the natural world, the sudden pulling back of the lips to expose bare teeth is a universal, immediate signal of aggression, terror, or impending violence. But human beings took this ancient biological display of weaponry and softly rewrote its meaning. Driven by a delicate band of tissue called the zygomaticus major muscle, the human smile evolved as the ultimate silent mechanism for closing the distance between strangers. By slightly softening the eyes and curving the corners of the mouth upward, our ancestors created a brilliant biological white flag. Across a sunlit clearing or through the flickering orange glow of a campfire, the smile became a long-distance, immediate promise. It is an evolutionary adaptation that broadcasts a simple, deeply comforting message. I am not a threat, and you are safe here with me. We transform the sharpest edges of our biology into the universal gentle symbol of joy and acceptance. This silent physical promise of safety eventually found its voice, shaping the very air we breathe into sounds of profound comfort. Hidden deep within the protective cartilage of your throat, the vocal cords are not simple, rigid strings, as early scientists once believed. They are incredibly complex, multi-layered structures, and their outermost boundary is an evolutionary marvel known as the superficial lamina propria. This microscopic layer is composed of a specialized jelly-like matrix that is utterly unique to the human species. It is astonishingly loose, pliable and flexible, capable of rippling with a fluid wave-like motion as air passes over it. This delicate gelatinous cushion is the anatomical reason we're not limited to the harsh, guttural barks or piercing calls of the deep forest. It allows the vocal folds to vibrate with almost zero friction, giving us the breathtaking ability to produce incredibly soft, breathy tones. Because of this microscopic layer of jelly, humans possess the physical capacity to whisper a secret in the dark, to let out a long, quiet sigh of relief, and to hum the slow, resonant notes of a lullaby to calm a restless child. Our throats were sculpted by evolution specifically to soothe one another. When those soft hums and vocal rhythms form a steady, predictable pattern, the human brain responds in a way that feels almost like magic, but is deeply rooted in our survival. We are the only species on Earth that inherently finds profound, emotional pleasure in the abstract patterns of music. Evolutionary neurobiologists have discovered that as our ancient ancestors learned to navigate the world by recognizing complex acoustic patterns, the rhythmic rustle of wind, the steady drop of rain, or the safe, approaching footsteps of the tribe, our auditory cortex formed a massive direct superhighway to the mesolimbic reward system. This is the very same ancient center of the brain that rewards us for finding life-saving food or fresh water. When we hear a slow, steady, repeating rhythm, the brain physically rewards us by releasing a gentle washing wave of dopamine and oxytocin. It is a biological sigh of relief. This is the precise reason why the slow, steady tempo of a peaceful song or the rhythmic drumming of a heartbeat against your ear can instantly quiet an anxious mind. We are biologically permanently wired to find an absolute sense of peace in harmony. Let the steady, quiet rhythm of your own breathing become that calming music now. The body grows heavier still, settling perfectly into the quiet geometry of the room. The mind can simply drift on the slow, turning currents of the night, knowing that everything is exactly as it should be. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. As the heart beats slowly and steadily, circulating that quiet warmth throughout your resting form, your body utilizes a brilliant invisible system to ensure you never become too warm under the covers. Hidden just beneath the skin of your palms, the soles of your feet, and the upper half of your face are thousands of microscopic, specialized blood vessels known as arteriovenous anastomoses, or AVAs. Unlike normal capillaries, these unique vessels act as direct, high-volume bypass valves between your arteries and your veins. They are the human body's highly advanced biological radiators. When you fall into a deep sleep and your core temperature naturally needs to drop by a fraction of a degree to maintain perfect rest, these tiny valves instantly and silently dilate. If you have ever instinctively slipped one foot out from under a heavy blanket in the middle of the night, you are engaging this exact system. The AVAs in the sole of your foot immediately shed the excess heat directly into the cool air of the room, acting as an automatic silent thermostat. They work flawlessly in the background, keeping your internal climate perfectly, beautifully balanced, so that your sleep remains deep, uninterrupted, and perfectly serene. This serene, temperature-controlled environment provides the perfect condition for the human brain to continue its most important, longest-running project. We have spoken of the prolonged childhood of our species, but this delay in maturation happens on a breathtakingly microscopic level as well. In the nervous system, delicate nerve fibers are wrapped in a fatty insulating layer called myelin. which acts much like the protective coating on a copper wire, dramatically speeding up the transmission of electrical thoughts. In the vast majority of mammals, this vital coating is fully formed and locked into place shortly after birth, cementing their instincts immediately. But in human beings, the process of myelination is beautifully intentionally delayed. It sweeps incredibly slowly, beginning at the back of the brain and moving gradually toward the front, not fully finishing its journey until we are well into our middle 20s. This extended, rolling delay leaves the frontal lobes of the human brain exquisitely plastic, open and absorbent for decades. It allows the rich, complex tapestry of human culture, language, and shared emotion to be woven directly into the physical structure of the mind over time. It is a slow, beautiful dawn of adulthood, ensuring we remain open to the world long enough to truly understand it. Woven deeply into that absorbed culture is the subtle, comforting sound of the human voice, a sound your body was physically shaped to catch. As your mind rests in the silence, the physical ear continues its gentle, passive watch over the room, utilizing an acoustic trick of pure physics. The human ear canal is not a simple, straight tunnel leading to the eardrum. It is a gently swooping, S-shaped curve. This highly specific shape acts as a natural, unpowered acoustic resonator. By the pure mathematical laws of sound, a biological tube of this exact length and curvature naturally amplifies sound waves that vibrate at frequencies perfectly between 2000 and 4000 Hz. This is not a random coincidence of anatomy. This narrow, amplified band is the exact specific frequency range of the softest consonants of human speech, the gentle, breathy sighs of comfort, and the high, delicate cooing of an infant. Long before modern technology, evolution permanently and physically tuned the shape of your ear canal to prioritize the quiet, intimate voices of your community over the chaotic, low-frequency rumble of the wild world outside. The voices we prioritize so deeply are spoken through a physical feature that serves as an elegant, vibrant signature of our humanity, even when we are completely silent. The human lips possess a unique, stark boundary known as the vermilion border, a feature completely absent in the rest of the animal kingdom. The skin that forms the surface of the lips is astonishingly thin, often only 3 to 5 cellular layers thick compared to the thick protective 16 layers covering the rest of the face. Because this delicate skin is so thin, and because it is completely devoid of the hair follicles and sweat glands that obscure the rest of the body, the rich, brightly oxygenated blood flowing just beneath the surface shines clearly and beautifully through. We literally wear the warmth and the vitality of our own blood on the surface of our faces. In our deep evolutionary past, before the complexity of spoken language was fully formed, this provided a silent, beautiful, and immediate indicator of health, emotional warmth, and physical presence. It allowed our ancestors to read the quiet internal states of one another simply by looking at the softening colour of a resting face, an ancient language of pure connection that remains with us tonight. As the subtle, quiet colours of the waking world fade entirely into the rich velvet darkness of deep sleep, the incredibly complex, beautifully tuned systems of your body continue their silent, synchronized dance. You're an absolute marvel of ancient engineering, gently sculpted by millions of years of sunlight, shadow, and survival, now resting perfectly in the calm, unhurried embrace of the night, waiting softly for the next chapter of the journey to unfold. As the absolute final arc of this long ancient journey comes to rest, we find the most profound wonder not in the way our bodies have changed, but in a silent, enduring capacity that we have carried within us since the very beginning. Deep within the core of every single human cell, there are tiny, ancient structures called mitochondria. These are the descendants of primordial organisms that entered into a peaceful, symbiotic partnership with our distant ancestors billions of years ago. They possess their own unique DNA, a maternal signature passed down in an unbroken shimmering thread from mother to child through every generation of our species. This is the mitochondrial Eve, the invisible genetic ghost of a woman who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago, whose biological legacy is currently powering every single heartbeat and every single dream you experience tonight. But the true wonder is what this shared energy allows us to do. Beyond survival, beyond tools and beyond language, human evolution has uniquely selected for the capacity of profound, restorative stillness. We are the only creatures on this planet that can intentionally cultivate a state of deep, contemplative peace. Our brains evolved a massive prefrontal cortex not just for complex calculations, but to allow us to observe our own existence with a sense of quiet awe. Fact 1. O1 is the simple, elegant truth that your very existence is the universe's way of finally looking back at itself with wonder. You are a masterpiece of time, a collection of stardust and ancient memories that has finally earned the right to simply be, to let go of the struggle, and to find absolute sanctuary in the quiet of the night. The journey of 101 wonders is now complete. Every fact, every adaptation, and every ancient echo we have traced tonight has led you to this exact moment of profound, undisturbed rest. You have travelled through millions of years, from the sun-drenched savannas to the deep blue oceans, and now you have arrived at the most important destination of all, the peaceful centre of your own being. There is no longer any need to hold on to these stories. You do not need to remember the shape of the bones or the chemistry of the breath. Like soft leaves falling onto the surface of a slow-moving river, you can let every piece of information simply drift away into the dark. Your mind has heard the song of its own history, and it is satisfied. The weight of the day has been entirely dismantled piece by piece, until nothing remains but the soft rhythmic pulse of your own life. Feel the incredible heaviness of your limbs. Notice the way the bed holds you with a solid, unwavering certainty that has been refined by eons of safety and trust. Your breathing is a slow, easy tide, moving in and out like the ancient rhythmic wash of the sea against a quiet shore. There is no effort required. There is no thinking left to do. The world outside is vast and silent, and you are tucked safely away in the warm velvet folds of the night. As the silence deepens, the space between your thoughts grows wider and softer. You are sinking into a state of pure, uncomplicated existence. The ancient stars are watching over the world just as they have for millions of years, and you are part of that same eternal stillness. Everything is balanced, everything is settled. Every cell in your body is now quietly engaged in the beautiful silent work of healing and renewal. You are a living bridge of peace, resting in the quiet heart of a story that will never truly end. You have permission to let go. You have permission to sink. You have permission to simply vanish into the comforting embrace of a deep, dreamless sleep. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.